Chapter 648. P.S. Sorry for being late. I'm not in a good condition. I tried my best to last until 6 chapters. Thank you again for your votes. Xiao San said. Young Lord Chu Li glanced at him lazily. Their words do not count. Although they do not count, they can still affect the Hill Master. Xiao San said, the Hill Master has always been. Young Lord, without someone to persuade him, I'm afraid the Hill Master will not choose you. Chu Li said, don't worry, he will choose me. This. Xiao San shook his head. Chu Li said, go do what you need to do. Follow me down the mountain tomorrow. Yes, Xiao San said. The next morning, Chu Li followed a group of people down the mountain. He rode on the horse and attracted the attention of the disciples. However, he ignored them and only took a nap on the horse. Occasionally, he would talk to Xiao San. Zhuge Tian was quite famous now. The disciples knew that his martial arts were outstanding and changed their impression of him. His martial arts was outstanding and he was arrogant. They did not dare to talk to him and could only watch from afar. When he was weak, everyone thought he was a loner and weak person. They mocked him in their hearts. Now that they knew his martial arts was outstanding, they did not think it was a flaw. He had the right to be arrogant, even if he was strong. Powerhouses had a temper, and they could accept it. They looked at him with admiration and admiration. Chu Li left the mountain in the morning and returned at night. It was a smooth and peaceful journey. No masters appeared. Chu Li was relieved when he returned to the courtyard. It seemed like the Divine Church of Azura did not want to go against Crouching Bull Mountain. It was just a coincidence. But if there were Azuras here, could it be that the Tempest Temple had not destroyed the Divine Church of Azura? If the Tempest Temple did not succeed, and the disciples of the Divine Church of Azura escaped, it would be troublesome. Any Azura would be a disaster to ordinary people. He did not know how many people they would kill. It seemed like he had to ask Fa Yuan. Xiao San rushed over and said excitedly, Young Lord, the Hill Master is out. So be it. Chu Li lay on the chair and swayed gently. The sun was setting and the courtyard was dyed red. Xiao San said, the Hill Master's martial arts must have improved greatly. Crouching Bull Mountain might not be sealed anymore. More importantly, young lord, your chance is here. Chu Li asked lazily, what opportunity? Xiao San said, it's time for the Hill Master to choose a successor. Young lord, this is your chance. Successor? Chu Li smiled. Not me. It should have been you, young lord, but... Xiao San shook his head. The Hill Master has always said that you are not suitable to inherit the position, so it should not have been you. Really? Chu Li scoffed and said, forget it, there's no point in being a Hill Master anyway. Young Master, this is Madame's business. Xiao San hurriedly said. Chu Li glared at him. Xiao San said, Madame was the daughter of the old Hill Master. If she had not married, the Hill Master might not have become the Hill Master. Therefore, this Crouching Bull Mountain should belong to you, young lord. If it were to be passed to someone else, Madame would not be able to rest in peace. All right, let's try. Chu Li said lazily, don't beg him. With my martial arts, if he doesn't choose me, who else would he choose? Sigh. Xiao San shook his head. The Hill Master is very prejudiced against you, young lord. Even if your martial arts are strong, he might not agree. Chu Li scoffed. Let's wait and see, there's no rush. Yes. Xiao San nodded helplessly. Chu Li used the omniscient mirror to observe the situation in the main hall. Hill Master, Morong Chun, and the other 5 closed-fist saluted the middle-aged man, who was sitting at the main seat. The middle-aged man, Zhuge Feng, was tall and strong. His face was solemn as he waved his hand. Sit, No need to be so polite. Everyone sat down. Morong Chun told them about what happened after he went into isolated cultivation. Zhuge Feng frowned as he listened. His face gradually darkened, and he said coldly, "These people are ruthless. I will not forgive them." "Hill Master, what is their goal?" Morong Chun could not help but ask. Zhuge Feng scoffed. "They want me to hand over the martial arts of the Crouching Bull Mountain." Ah! Everyone was shocked. Zhuge Feng said, "How could I agree to that? But I can't beat that woman, so I could only go into isolated cultivation. Luckily, I improved a little, so I am not afraid of her anymore." "Congratulations, Hill Master." Everyone closed fists saluted. Morong Chun said, "Congratulations, Hill Master. Those people have been taken care of by the young master. He killed 6 grandmasters, and that woman was shocked too, so she never appeared again." Wait, who did you say killed 6 grandmasters?" Zhuge Feng quickly asked. "Young master. You don't know that the young master has the ultimate martial arts, right?" Morong Chun smiled. "Ultimate martial arts? Him. No way." Zhuge Feng waved his hand and smiled. Morong Chun said, "You haven't seen the young master for a while, right?" "Humph, why would I want to see that bastard? If he was not my son, I would have killed him already." Zhuge Feng said coldly. Morong Chun said, "Hill Master, the young master is no longer the young master from before. What kind of improvement can he have?" Zhuge Feng said impatiently. "Useless trash. The young master has the ultimate martial arts now. Even that woman can't do anything to the young master. Therefore, you might not be able to defeat the young master," Morong Chun said. "Ha!" Zhuge Feng laughed. Morong Chun and Xia Lian looked at him helplessly, and everyone else smiled. Zhuge Feng laughed a few more times, then shook his head. "Morong, since when did you learn to joke?" Xia Lian said, "Hill Master, it's true." Zhuge Feng frowned. If one person said it, he could treat it as a joke, but if 2 elders said it, it was most likely true. "You said that his martial arts is powerful." Zhuge Feng scoffed. Morong Chun, Xia Lian, and the rest nodded. Zhuge Feng said, "All right, I want to see how powerful he is. Someone, call this bastard over." "Yes," a young man in a blue shirt answered, and left the hall. After a while, the young man in a blue shirt returned alone. "Where is he?" Zhuge Feng frowned. The young man in a blue shirt reported helplessly, "Hill Master, the young master doesn't want to come." "Doesn't want to come? This bastard is getting bolder and bolder." Zhuge Feng said. Morong Chun said, "Hill Master, why don't we go and see the young master?" Zhuge Feng waved his hand. No, he said to the young man in a blue shirt. "Go and tell him that if he doesn't come today, I will break his legs." "Yes," the young man in a blue shirt answered, and left the hall again. Everyone looked at Zhuge Feng helplessly. Sigh, "Hill Master, you know the young master's temper. He can be persuaded by reason, but not by force. Why do you have to be like him? Just go and see him," Morong Chun said. "Bastard! How dare he throw a tantrum at me? I will break his legs today." Zhuge Feng's face darkened. "None of you are allowed to stop me today, or else I will beat you up." "Hill Master, I think the young master can be the next Hill Master," Morong Chun said. Xia Lian quickly said, "Yes." "What kind of sickness did you two have?" Zhuge Feng laughed and shook his head. "Is it because you have been too tired recently, Hill Master?" Morong Chun said, "The young master is really different." Chapter 649. P.S. I'm going to add more chapters today. When I was chatting yesterday, one of the alliance leaders said it was not enough and wanted to add more chapters. Also, with the increase in votes, I have to repay everyone. After a while, The young man limped back to the hall and smiled bitterly. Zhuge Feng stared at his leg and asked coldly, "What happened?" The young man said helplessly, "Leader, it's nothing. I accidentally tripped. Xiao Tang, you're getting more and more capable. How could you fall like this? Did all your martial arts training go to waste? Tell me the truth." Zhuge Feng shouted. Xiao Tang shook his head. "Leader, I really tripped." Morong Chun stepped forward and smiled. "Xiao Tang, even a 3-year-old wouldn't be able to fool you. Why can't you just tell us the truth? Why are you hiding it? Elder Morong, you misunderstood." Xiao Tang was shocked. He looked at Zhuge Feng and blushed. "My brain works slowly," Morong Chun said. "Then tell me what happened." It's young master," Xiao Tang said softly and lowered his head. Zhuge Feng took a deep breath. "Did that brat hit you?" Tang Bingyao said helplessly. I'll repeat Mountain Chieftain's words. Young Chieftain said that if you want to break his dog legs, he'll break mine first. "Then you just let him hit you? You can't even beat a piece of trash?" Zhuge Feng asked. Xiao Tang smiled bitterly. "Leader, young master is very skilled and fast. I couldn't dodge in time and couldn't escape." He knew that once he said that, young master would definitely go crazy and beat him up. However, he was confident that he could run away when the situation was not good. As soon as he finished speaking, he felt a sharp pain in his right leg. It was kicked so hard that it almost broke. He didn't even see how young master attacked, let alone react or dodge. Zhuge Feng stared at him. "You're trash too." Xiao Tang lowered his head in shame. Morong Chun smiled. "Leader, young master is no longer the young master of the past. You can't treat him the same way as before." T. Zhuge Feng scoffed. "A leopard cannot change its spots. Do you think I don't know what kind of person he is? The hill master knows too little about the young lord." Morong Chun shook his head and said, "How about this? I'll go and persuade the young lord." "All right, go ahead." Zhuge Feng scoffed. "Let's see if you can get him here. Hill master, please wait for my good news." Morong Chun gave a fist salute and smiled. Zhuge Feng waved his hand and tilted his head to the side, refusing to look at him. When Morong Chun arrived at Chu Li's courtyard, he saw Qiao Sen standing guard at the entrance. Qiao Sen stepped forward and blocked Morong Chun's way when he saw him. He looked at Morong Chun awkwardly. Morong Chun frowned, and his expression darkened. "Qiao San, you're an old man. The young lord is young and full of vigor, but you're still young and insensible. Don't you know how to persuade the young master? Why are you throwing a tantrum at a time like this?" Qiao San smiled bitterly and said, "Elder Morong, how could I not persuade him? But you know how capable I am. Young lord doesn't listen to me at all." "Useless, let me do it." Morong Chun waved his hand and gestured for him to move aside. Qiao San did not move. He shook his head and smiled bitterly. "The young master said that he wants to cultivate in isolation and will not see anyone. You—" Morong Chun's expression darkened. "Are you trying to stop me? Elder Morong, if I don't stop you, I'm afraid that my legs will be broken." Qiao Sen smiled bitterly. "Don't make things difficult for me. It's fine if the young master doesn't want to see him. We'll talk about it another day. The hill master is throwing a tantrum. If we don't see him now, the two of them will fight even more." Morong Chun scoffed. Qiao Sen said, "You know the young master's temper. Even 9 bulls can't stop him. Since he said he doesn't want to see him, let's just wait. The hill master's temper is the same. Father and son are enemies. Really?" Morong Chun said impatiently. Qiao Sen shook his head and said, "I can't let you in, Elder Morong." Morong Chun glared at him and scoffed. "Looks like we have to fight." Qiao San quickly nodded and smiled. Elder Morong, I have nothing to say if you defeat me. He was eager for that to happen. The young master could not blame him for being weaker. Morong Chun scoffed, but did not fall for the trick. If he were to fight, the young master's anger would be directed at him. Young master! Morong Chun suddenly shouted. Young master! I am Morong Chun. Chu Li's lazy voice was heard. Qiao San, let Elder Morong in. All right, Qiao San quickly replied. He moved aside and smiled. He bowed respectfully. Elder Morong, please. Morong Chun ignored him. He pushed open the courtyard door and walked in front of Chu Li. Chu Li was lying on a chair. He waved his hand as a greeting. Morong Chun fist saluted. Young master, the hill master has summoned you. Why don't you go? Chu Li said lazily. I don't want to see his face. Young master, you can't do that. Morong Chun quickly said. Chu Li smiled. Why not? He's allowed to be rude to me, but I can't return the favor. After all, the hill master is... Morong Chun said. Chu Li scoffed. You want to say that he's the father and I'm the son, right? Morong Chun nodded. Chu Li said, does he look like a father? If he doesn't look like a father, why should I look like a son? Elder Morong, you don't have to persuade me. I won't go. I don't want to see his old face. The hill master is not old, right? Morong Chun asked. Chu Li scoffed. Old but not dead. Go back and tell him to get lost. Morong Chun looked at him helplessly. Chu Li did everything according to Zhuge Tian's personality. He followed his inner feelings. If it was Zhuge Tian, he would not dare to be so presumptuous. He would act like a mouse seeing a cat when he saw Zhuge Feng. Now that he had become Zhuge Tian, he had to follow his heart. Moreover, his martial arts had improved greatly. It was normal for him to be presumptuous. Morong Chun looked at him with a headache. Their relationship was bad, but he did not expect it to be this bad. If that was the case, it would be harder for the young master to become the hill master. The hill master might not agree to it. He would not be biased just because they were father and son. Young master, you don't want to be the hill master anymore. Morong Chun sighed. Chu Li said calmly, what's the difference if I do it or not? No one dares to provoke me anyway. I'll be more free if I don't become the hill master. How can a man be powerless for a day? Morong Chun said. What's the use of being powerless? I can kill him with a swing of my sword. Elder Morong, you don't have to say any more. I won't change my mind. I won't meet him, Chu Li said in disdain. Sigh, this is the best opportunity. The hill master is actually very happy to hear that your martial arts has improved greatly. Morong Chun shook his head, helplessly. Will he be happy? Chu Li sneered. But what does his happiness have to do with me? Elder Morong, I won't see you out. Morong Chun saw him like this and knew that there was no point in trying to persuade him. He did not listen at all. They were indeed father and son. Their tempers were the same. Chapter 650. Qiao San sent him to the door apologetically. Morong Chun turned and stared at him. Qiao San, you have to persuade the young master. Qiao San looked at the courtyard and sighed. Elder Morong, how can I not persuade him? I don't want to see someone else take the position, but the young master's temper, sigh. Qiao San, what are you talking about? Chu Li's cold voice could be heard. Qiao San was shocked. Young master, it's nothing. Don't talk nonsense. I'll cut off your tongue if you say another word. Chu Li scoffed. Qiao San quickly replied, Yes, I won't say another word. He smiled bitterly at Morong Chun. Morong Chun closed fist saluted and left. When he returned to the main hall, everyone stared behind him. When they saw no one, they shook their heads. What? You're an elder and you don't care? Looks like you don't have enough authority as an elder. Zhuge Feng scoffed. Morong Chun smiled bitterly. Even your authority can't scare the young master, let alone me. Why don't you go and take a look? The young master has been wronged all these years. You should show some concern for him. After all, they are father and son. I owed him in my previous life. If we're father and son, we're enemies. I'd rather not have such an evil creature. All right, Morong, you don't have to persuade him anymore. Morong Chun said, the young master's martial arts are unparalleled. He's definitely not weaker than the hill master. Furthermore, he even escorted the disciples down the mountain. He's different from before. I think the young master can take over the position. Morong, what did he give you? Why are you speaking up for him? Zhuge Feng squinted his eyes. Take over the position? As long as he's worthy of being a disciple of Crouching Bull Mountain, I'll be thankful. Xia Lian said, Hill Master, Elder Morong's words come from the public interest. The young lord is indeed different from before. His martial arts are outstanding, and he has deep feelings for the Crouching Bull Mountain. This time, when he escorted the disciples down the mountain, it is the best proof. Everyone knows how dangerous this task is. Just because of this, you say he's being fair? Zhuge Feng laughed coldly. You guys are too lenient with him. Is it because he is my son, and you want to please me? Hill Master, as long as you meet the young lord, you'll naturally want him to take over the position. Let's go, Morong Chun said. Seeing is believing. Why must you stubbornly refuse to meet him? Humph, I don't want to see his face. Zhuge Feng said coldly. Morong Chun sighed to himself. Sure enough, they had a bad temper. Even their words were the same. He smiled and said, I think the hill master is biased and can't tolerate the young master. Why can't I even take a look at him? Is it because you can't let go of your pride? All right, let's go take a look. Zhuge Feng scoffed. I want to see if you are exaggerating. Morong Chun smiled. Hill Master, you'll understand when you see it. Let's go. Zhuge Feng scoffed, then stood up and walked towards the main hall. Everyone hurriedly followed. When they arrived at Chu Li's courtyard, they saw Qiao Sen standing guard there. When he saw them approaching, he quickly went forward and greeted, Greetings, Hill Master. Zhuge Feng sized him up and laughed coldly. Qiao Sen lowered his head, not daring to breathe. All right, Qiao San, I asked you to come here to monitor him and not let him get into trouble. You, on the other hand, not only did you not stop him, you even followed his heart. Tell me, how many sins have you committed? Zhuge Feng laughed coldly. Qiao Sen lowered his head and said, Yes, please forgive me, Hill Master. Zhuge Feng said, If this happens again, I will kill you. Yes, Qiao Sen replied. Where is that bastard? He's not inside, right? Zhuge Feng scoffed. He sensed that there was no aura inside. No one was there. Qiao Sen said helplessly, The young master went out. Humph, he's hiding from me, right? You don't want to see your father, do you? Zhuge Feng said coldly. Qiao Sen lowered his head in silence. Zhuge Feng turned to look at Morong Chun and Xia Lian. You see now, it's not that I don't want to see him. It's that he doesn't want to see me. This time, don't blame me for not respecting the relationship between father and son. Morong Chun quickly said, Elder Qiao, the young master was just here. Qiao Sen said helplessly, The young master said that when you return, Elder Morong, you will definitely persuade the hill master to come here. He can't afford to offend you, so he left first. Oh, you're quite smart to be able to predict Elder Morong's actions. Zhuge Feng said in a strange tone. Unfortunately, this intelligence is not used on the right path. When you return, tell him not to come and see me for the rest of his life. Hill Master, Chao Sen quickly said, the young master is just being impulsive. He can't think straight. If he can't think straight, why doesn't he just die himself? The sooner he dies, the less trouble there will be. Zhuge Feng scoffed. Chao Sen lowered his head helplessly. It was obvious that the Hill Master had been keeping an eye on the young master and knew what the young master had done. Chao Sen had nothing to say. Morong Chun also sighed. The young master had indeed done many evil things and deserved to die, but he could not die now. If he did, Crouching Bull Mountain would be finished. As they were talking in front of the courtyard, 3 people suddenly walked over. It was Murong Liang, Zhou Hang, and Chu Daji. Murong Liang's face was haggard, and his breathing was weak. Compared to Zhou Hang and Chu Daji, they were worlds apart. Murong Chun frowned, and his face darkened. Liang, go play somewhere else. Greetings, Hill Master. Murong Liang closed fist saluted. Zhou Hang and Chu Daji closed fist saluted too. Murong Chun's face darkened as he stared at Murong Liang. Murong Liang did not look at him, but stared at Zhuge Feng excitedly. Hill Master, you've come out of isolation. Crouching Bull Mountain is saved. Zhuge Feng smiled. You've finally come out. Little Liang, you're injured? Yes. Murong Liang's expression darkened, but he smiled again. It's nothing, just a small injury. It's not a small injury. Did you descend the mountain too? Zhuge Feng shook his head and scoffed. Murong Liang shook his head. Hill Master, I didn't get injured at the foot of the mountain. Murong Chun said. Hill Master, he was taught a lesson by young master. He was rude and asked for it. However, young master did hit him too hard. Zhuge Feng frowned. That bastard did it? Young master's martial arts are extraordinary. My martial arts were crippled by young master. Murong Liang said. Crippled? That bastard dared to cripple your martial arts. Zhuge Feng shouted. Murong Liang sighed. Hill Master, it was my fault. I was too talkative and provoked young master. Chao Sen, find him immediately. Zhuge Feng turned and stared at Chao Sen coldly. If you can't find him, don't come back. Yes, Hill Master. Chao Sen nodded helplessly. Zhuge Feng said, come back in an hour. If that bastard doesn't come back in an hour, I won't have him as my son. Yes, Chao Sen quickly replied and floated away. Murong Liang closed fist saluted. Hill Master, young master actually made a mistake. It's okay if my martial arts are crippled. I'm still young and will catch up soon. Chapter 651. P.S. Everyone's reaction to the first 2 chapters were too lame. I thought it would be good if I pushed the conflict layer by layer, but the reaction was like this. Unfortunately, I can't change it anymore. I'm sorry. My abilities are limited. I apologize to everyone. Slap. Murong Chun took a step forward and slapped Murong Liang. Father. Murong Liang covered his face in disbelief. What a good plan. Murong Chun said coldly, you're playing dirty tricks and tricking the Hill Master. You think you're so smart, don't you? Father, Murong Liang yelled. What tricks did I play? I just happened to bump into the Hill Master. Coincidence, what a coincidence. Murong Chun pointed at him. I always thought you were smart. I didn't expect you to be so petty. Useless thing. Father, what did I do wrong? Murong Liang said unhappily. You're up to no good. You wanted to use the Hill Master to kill the young lord. What a good plan. Murong Chun stared at him calmly. Father, don't accuse me wrongly. I didn't know that the Hill Master would come out today. Plus, a devil like Zhuge Tian, who kills innocent girls, deserves to be punished. I think he deserves to die. Shut up. If you don't shut up, I'll kill you. Murong Liang yelled. Father, I'll tell you even if you kill me. Murong Chun yelled. Zhuge Tian's martial arts are great, but he doesn't deserve to be the Hill Master. A Hill Master with such a character is a disgrace to the entire Crouching Bull Mountain. Bang! Murong Chun suddenly slapped Murong Liang, but Zhuge Feng blocked it. The two palms collided. A strong gust of wind blew, and Murong Liang's expression changed drastically. If the hill chieftain had not blocked this palm strike, and it had landed on him, he would have died. Hill Master. Murong Chun took a step back. Zhuge Feng asked, "What do you want?" "This brat is up to no good. In order to become the Hill Master, he tried everything to force the young lord away. I can't let him live. I'll destroy him today." Murong Chun said angrily. "Nonsense." Zhuge Feng scoffed. "You think I don't know what that bastard did?" Murong Chun said, "Although the young master is at fault, we're also responsible for being too cold to the young master, causing him to become more and more extreme. However, now that the young master has mastered his martial arts, his temperament has changed. He no longer does evil, and he even knows to protect the disciples of the sect. He should bear the consequences of his own actions. I'm already being extremely benevolent by not cleaning up the family. I'm not letting his mother down." Zhuge Feng said. "Hill Master." Murong Chun quickly said, "Heaven is really blind. Good people don't live long, but evil people live for thousands of years." Zhuge Feng laughed coldly. Xia Lian sighed. "Hill Master, disciples like Murong Liang have good qualifications, but they're not at the level of outstanding talents. They're far from what you were when you were young. With them as Hill Masters, our Crouching Bull Mountain is getting worse with each generation. We've completely fallen. Are we going to let what happened a while ago happen again? Everyone is afraid. No matter what, the Hill Master's martial arts is the most important. No matter how good his character is, if someone bullies him and he is powerless to resist, Crouching Bull Mountain will be finished." Zhuge Feng glanced at the crowd. Their eyes flashed, but they did not refute him. Zhuge Feng sighed. "Looks like I'm not a good Hill Master." They had suffered too much indignation and had become extreme. "Hill Master, you're too serious. If young Master's martial arts were normal, we wouldn't have done this. However, young Master's martial arts are shockingly strong. If he has some flaws, as long as he corrects them, we won't hold it against him." Murong Chun said. Everyone nodded. The depression and grievances they experienced after sealing the mountain made them even more determined to learn martial arts. They hoped that the Hill Master could become a powerhouse with unparalleled martial arts so that Crouching Bull Mountain could stand tall and not suffer the humiliation of the past. Zhuge Feng sighed and shook his head. "You guys have gone down the wrong path. Young Master doesn't like to manage things. If he becomes the Hill Master, we'll take care of the mundane matters for him. He only needs to focus on his martial arts," Murong Chun said. "Furthermore, young Master's wisdom is definitely not below that of the Hill Master." Zhuge Feng shook his head. "I will never agree to let him become the Hill Master. He will bring Crouching Bull Mountain to a point of no return." As they spoke, Chu Li and Qiao Sen floated over. Qiao Sen looked at Zhuge Feng anxiously. Chu Li did not even look at him. He walked over lazily and closed fist saluted. "Elders, I apologize for my lack of manners. Oh, Brother Murong is here too. Are you here to complain?" "You." Murong Liang stared at him angrily. "Bastard," Zhuge Feng shouted and stared at him. "You crippled little Liang's martial arts and still dare to be so arrogant. How dare you?" Chu Li glanced at him and said, "What do you mean by that, Hill Master?" Everyone sighed. The father and son were at loggerheads again. "Why did you cripple little Liang's martial arts? He is the pillar of the younger generation. What are you trying to do?" Zhuge Feng said coldly. Chu Li said, "You want to ask him what he's trying to do? He wants to steal the position of Hill Master and even wants to use my past mistakes to force me to leave. I crippled his martial arts because of Elder Morong. If not, I would have killed him right away." "Bastard, with all the evil you've done, do you think you have the right to be the Hill Master?" Zhuge Feng shouted. "Why not? This is my mother's foundation," Chu Li said. Zhuge Feng's face darkened as if it was dyed with ink. He said coldly, "You bastard, how dare you mention your mother? If she knew what you've done, she wouldn't be able to rest in peace." Chu Li said, "It was just a problem with my cultivation. It was an unintentional mistake. Zhuge Tian deserved to die for what he did." Chu Li was using Zhuge Tian's identity, but he could only think of a way to get away with it. "Bastard, you're still not repentant after making a mistake. You really deserve to die." Zhuge Feng yelled. Chu Li shook his head and was too lazy to say anything else. He walked towards the door of the courtyard. Zhuge Feng scoffed. "I'm going to clean up the house today." Chu Li laughed coldly. Zhuge Feng knew about Zhuge Tian's evil deeds, but he did not stop him. What a cold-blooded person. He glanced at the crowd. Among them, other than Morong Chun, there were two other elders who knew about Zhuge Tian's evil deeds. Xia Lian and the other two elders did not. Chu Li continued to walk towards the door. "Bastard!" Zhuge Feng shouted and threw a punch. Moo. The sound of a cow's moo could be heard. "Hill Master!" The crowd screamed. He actually used the crouching bull punch. It seemed like the Hill Master really wanted to kill the young master. Moo. The sound of a cow's moo could be heard, and a sharp inner force attacked him. Chu Li extended his palm and swiped it. It was as if a cow's tongue had licked him, and he quickly swept the inner force away. Chi. Chu Li seemed to hear a soft whistle coming from his palm. It was as if a silver needle had pierced through his inner force defense and entered his body. It was like a fish swimming against his inner force and headed towards his heart. Chu Li was shocked. He did not expect the crouching bull punch to be not as forceful as its name suggested, but it was extremely sharp. As he thought about it, the heavenly demonic orb appeared and swallowed the silver needle. Chapter 652. As Chu Li's mind stirred, the heavenly demonic orb appeared in a flash and swallowed the silver needle. Zhuge Feng was surprised to see Chu Li looking at him calmly. He laughed coldly. "Good, you've grown. Take another punch from me." Moo. He punched again. This time, the bull's cry was even louder. It was as if a majestic black bull was standing in front of them. Its horns were ferocious, and its aura was enormous. Then it rushed over with its horns, and its ferocious aura was so strong that it made people want to run away. Chu Li sneered and placed his hand on the hilt of his sword. The sword on his waist turned into a cold light. It was so fast that it was unimaginably fast. The tip of the sword was already in front of Zhuge Feng's throat. Zhuge Feng frowned, and his eyes widened. He punched again as he retreated. Ding! The sword's body suddenly trembled, and a clear ringing sound could be heard. The tip of the sword was still at his throat, only the vibrating sound of the sword indicated that it had just broken through the force of the punch, and it was a very powerful punch. Zhuge Feng was shocked. He did not expect his punch to be broken through by the sword. When did he learn such a profound sword technique? Even he could not compare to him. He lowered his body again and kicked with both legs. Ding! The sword hit the tip of his foot and vibrated again. Half of his body went numb. A strange inner energy came from the sword and entered his abdomen from the tip of his foot. Layers of inner energy were all swallowed up by it and grew stronger. The tip of the sword was still at his throat. Chu Li stared into his eyes and said coldly, "You have already died 3 times." Zhuge Feng could feel the murderous intent in his cold eyes. He gave up struggling and sneered. "What heart technique is this?" Chu Li's sword hit his shoulder. The strange inner energy that had grown stronger immediately went out of his shoulder and disappeared. He said coldly, "You don't need to know? Who did you learn the sword technique from? What master did you have?" Zhuge Feng asked coldly. "I got a secret manual and practiced according to it." Chu Li sheathed his sword and answered lazily. "Impossible." Zhuge Feng snorted. If one practiced according to the manual, there was a limit to how strong they could be. They could not be as strong as him. Chu Li laughed and looked at him in disdain. "I don't have the time to lie to you." Everyone looked at them in shock. They knew that the young lord's martial arts were extremely high and that his swordsmanship was outstanding, but they knew even more about the hill chieftain's martial arts. The hill chieftain had gone into closed-door training, so when she came out, her martial arts would definitely improve greatly. Therefore, they assumed that no matter how high the young lord's martial arts were, he was still inferior to the mountain chieftain. Never in a million years would he have thought that the young lord's swordsmanship would be so marvelous that the mountain chieftain couldn't even block a single strike. Zhuge Feng's face darkened. He took a deep breath and said, "What secret manual?" "The secret manual has been destroyed. I'm the only one who has read it. Qiao Sen hasn't seen it either." Chu Li said lazily. "So don't even think about it." Zhuge Feng scoffed. "Our Crouching Bull Mountain's martial arts are top-notch. Why do we need to be jealous of other secret manuals? I'm just worried that you'll learn those evil martial arts that allow you to progress quickly, but cause endless trouble in the future." Chu Li said, "It was an evil martial art, so I made some mistakes, but it's all in the past now. I've returned to normal, and I've mastered my martial art." "What martial arts do you practice?" Zhuge Feng asked. Chu Li said, "I don't have a name. It's the nameless sword technique." "Nameless sword technique. Humph." Zhuge Feng knew that he didn't want to answer, so he got even angrier. He said coldly, "Looks like you don't trust your father." Chu Li said, "Yes, I don't trust you." "What kind of father are you?" "Bastard, do you think that just because you're strong, you can do whatever you want? You don't even want to acknowledge your father anymore?" Zhuge Feng scoffed. Chu Li said, "You don't deserve to be a father, and I don't have a father like you. Goodbye, I won't see you out." He turned around and walked towards the entrance of the courtyard. Zhuge Feng was indeed greedy for the secret manual. Any martial artist would be tempted by this kind of secret manual, but he would never give it to Zhuge Feng. "Come back here." Zhuge Feng reached out to grab him. Chu Li took a step to the side and dodged. He didn't even look at Zhuge Feng and walked lazily to the entrance of the courtyard. He pushed the door open and was about to enter. "Moo!" Zhuge Feng roared as he charged towards Chu Li and punched him in the back. Tisk! Chu Li turned his head and pulled out his sword. A cold light shone from his waist, and the tip of the sword pierced through the Crouching Bull punch. "Moo!" Zhuge Feng didn't dodge. He punched again with an even stronger force. Chu Li's sword pierced through the Crouching Bull punch without any resistance and pierced his shoulder. "Hill Master!" Everyone screamed. They stared at Chu Li in shock. They couldn't believe that he actually dared to hurt the Hill Master. Chu Li pulled out his sword and shook it lightly. Fresh blood dripped from the tip of the sword. He sheathed his sword and looked at Zhuge Feng coldly. "If you don't know what's good for you, this sword won't be piercing your shoulder. It'll be piercing your throat. Bastard!" Zhuge Feng stared at him with a dark face and spat out these two words slowly. Chu Li laughed coldly. Whether I'm a bastard or a bastard, you don't have to worry about it. As a father, when have you ever cared about me? He then entered the courtyard and closed the door. Qiao Sen looked at the courtyard helplessly and then at Zhuge Feng. Zhuge Feng held his shoulder. His face was dark. Everyone was silent and didn't say a word. Everyone was shocked. They didn't think that Zhuge Feng would dare to hurt the Hill Master. What was worse was that the Hill Master couldn't even block the young master's sword. Sigh. It seems like the young master's problem is hard to solve. Murong Chun shook his head and sighed. Hill Master, the young master's resentment is very deep. This bastard is lawless. Zhuge Feng gritted his teeth and scoffed. Murong Chun said, the young master's sword is accurate. He doesn't really want to kill the Hill Master. However, I didn't expect the young master's swordsmanship to be so powerful. It seems like the next Hill Master has to be handed over to the young master. He can't be the Hill Master. As long as I am alive, he can't be the Hill Master. Zhuge Feng laughed coldly. Hill Master, Murong Chun quickly said. Now, only the young master is suitable. Who else can take on such a big responsibility? Little Liang can't do it. Little Zhou and little Chu are lacking. In the end, it's still the young master. Don't bring this up again. I will never agree to it. Let's go. Zhuge Feng let go of his hand and said coldly. Hill Master, Murong Chun quickly said. Zhuge Feng waved his hand and turned around to leave. Murong Chun looked at Xia Lian. Xia Lian shook his head. It was almost impossible to convince the Hill Master now that the father and son were at this stage. Fortunately, the Hill Master was not old, and they had plenty of time. Everyone followed him. Qiao Sen stayed behind and thought for a while. He still followed them to find out more information. The young master's sword had caused a huge disaster. Murong Liang, Zhou Hang, and Chu Daji also left. Murong Liang had a smile on his face, but Zhou Hang and Chu Daji were silent. Murong Liang was immersed in his excitement, so he ignored them and returned to his courtyard. Zhou Hang and Chu Daji sighed. They felt that the young master's future was unpredictable. Murong Liang was ruthless and wanted to cut off the young master's roots. Chu Li lay lazily on the chair, leisurely and at ease. Qiao Sen suddenly ran back with a pale face. Young master, something bad has happened. The Hill Master wants to expel you from the sect. Chu Li was stunned and looked up at him. He wants to expel me. Chapter 653. Qiao Sen was startled and shook his head. The Hill Master said that you have committed many evil deeds, and as a disciple of Crouching Bull Mountain, you deserve to die. However, since you are of a different status, he will spare your life. However, you will have to leave Crouching Bull Mountain to fend for yourself. Chu Li scoffed. If I hand over the secret manual, will he still chase me out? This. Qiao Sen thought for a while and shook his head. The Hill Master did not mention anything about the secret manual. He only said that he wants to chase you out of Crouching Bull Mountain. All right, let's kick him out then. Chu Li did not care. That saves me a lot of trouble. I was just thinking of leaving the mountain to experience the prosperity of the world. Young master, are you going to abandon Madame's foundation? Qiao Sen asked. It's just Crouching Bull Mountain. It's not one of the 4 major sections. Don't take it too seriously. Chu Li waved his hand. Young master, Crouching Bull Mountain has thousands of years of heritage. As long as you take over as the Hill Master and work hard, you will be able to bring glory to Crouching Bull Mountain with your extraordinary martial arts. You will be able to stand on the same level as the Tempest Temple and the other 3 major sects. Xiao San's face darkened. Chu Li chuckled. Xiao San, you're really ambitious. This is Madam's ambition. Xiao San was emotional. Madam is a woman. Unfortunately, the heavens are jealous of her beauty and did not let her live. Otherwise, Crouching Bull Mountain would not be what it is today. It would be on par with the four major sects. Stop dreaming, Chu Li said. No matter how capable my mother is, she would not be able to reach the level of the four major sections. They have thousands of years of heritage. Since this place does not want me around, I will leave. You can stay. Young master, who will serve you if I stay? Xiao San asked. I am not that fragile. I will not starve if no one serves me. Help me pack up. I will leave immediately. It will not look good if someone chases me out later. Chu Li waved his hand. I will plead with the Hill Master. For Madam's sake, he will not treat young master like this. Xiao San said. Chu Li snickered. You're really naive. If he cared about that, would he have done something like this? You should be careful after I leave. He's after the secret manual. Young master, I'll go with you. Xiao San quickly said. Chu Li waved his hand. There's no need for that. Stay here and gather information. I'll be back once every half a month. Xiao San was overjoyed. Young lord, you still care about Crouching Bull Mountain. Chu Li said. If he wants to expel me from the mountain, should I just obediently let him go? I'm just taking the opportunity to go out for a spin. When that old fart is about to die, I'll come back and take back my foundation. Xiao San hurriedly said, The Hill Master is in a fit of anger and will regret it in a few days. I will take the opportunity to persuade him. Don't try to persuade them. Morong Chun and the others will do it. Chu Li waved his hand and said, Just stay here obediently and don't make any mistakes. If they catch you, they will use the opportunity to interrogate you about the secret manual. Yes. Xiao San's expression turned serious. Pack up. Chu Li waved his hand. Xiao San hurriedly went to tidy up. Zhuge Feng, Morong Chun, Xiao Lian, and the other elders arrived at Chu Li's courtyard. They pushed the door open and saw Xiao San tidying up the courtyard. Hill Master. Xiao San quickly came over and bowed respectfully. He was very careful so that no one would be able to use him against him. Zhuge Feng said coldly, Where's that bastard? The young lord has already left the mountain. Xiao San replied respectfully. Left the mountain? Zhuge Feng scoffed. The young lord heard that he was about to be expelled from Crouching Bull Mountain, so he left first. He said that there was no need for you to send him off. Xiao San said, Carefully. Bang! Zhuge Feng slammed his palm on the stone table. A clear palm print was imprinted on the table. It was about an inch deep and had a neat edge. Everyone sighed. The father and son were fighting each other head-on. Their conflict had escalated to this point in less than half a day. Xiao San was shocked and quickly lowered his head. What else does that bastard have to say? Zhuge Feng said coldly. Xiao San said carefully, The young lord said that it's better for you to give up on the secret manual. It's an evil technique that causes people to lose their minds and do evil things. The young lord has already destroyed it and will not pass it on to anyone else. Zhuge Feng's expression changed. Morong Chun and the rest's expressions changed as well. They lowered their heads so that no one could see the change in their expressions. Chu Li's words were like a slap to their faces. Everyone felt their faces burning. The young lord was indeed smart to be able to see through people's intentions. Xiao San said, The young lord also said that he doesn't care about being the leader of Crouching Bull Mountain. Even if he was asked, he wouldn't agree. Good. This bastard has some self-awareness. Zhuge Feng laughed coldly. Xiao San remained silent. Let's go back. Zhuge Feng turned around and walked back. Morong Chun looked at Qiao San. Qiao San showed a helpless expression, indicating that he did not manage to persuade the young lord. As the sun set, the snow lunar pavilion looked like a huge piece of red silk. The lake water swayed gently as if the silk was shaking. In a gazebo on the lake, Shuninghu was dressed in green. Her skin was as white as snow, and her face was as beautiful as a painting. Her white left hand supported her chin as she stared at the lake. She seemed to have lost focus, as if she was daydreaming. Her eyebrows were covered with a thin layer of worry. She suddenly turned her head to the left and saw Chu Li in a white robe standing there quietly. Shuninghu glanced at him and supported her chin again to look at the lake. Chu Li sat down in front of her and smelled her fragrance. He asked, "Senior Shin, if the third lady completes her cultivation and becomes an enlightened master, what will happen?" "She will ascend to the Grand Master's boundary." "You don't know?" Shuninghu said. "She will leave this world." Chu Li scoffed. Shuninghu nodded. "Of course." Chu Li said, "I didn't know before. Now you know." Shuninghu put down her left arm and stood up. She stared at him with interest. "What? You changed your mind?" "Yes, I changed my mind." Chu Li said. "You can't bear to?" Shuninghu asked. Chu Li said, "I thought that even if she becomes an enlightened master and has no feelings for me, I would be able to accept it. As long as she lives well and sees her often, I would be satisfied." "What about now?" Shuninghu smiled. Chu Li said, "I can't believe she wants to leave. This enlightened master is fine. It's not up to you." Shuninghu shook her head. "Her cultivation is getting better, and she has severed her feelings for you. This time, it's even more thorough. She has no feelings for you anymore. It's useless no matter what you say." Chu Li frowned. Shuninghu sighed. "You didn't seize the best opportunity, and it means you lost it. Xiao Qi is no longer yours." Chu Li said, "I want to take her away." Shuninghu laughed. "All right, as long as she is willing, I won't stop her." Chu Li stared at her. Shuninghu said, "The High Duke's public house is getting stronger and stronger. There's no need for her to sacrifice herself. It's enough for one of them to be sacrificed. There's no need to sacrifice the other one." "Thank you, Senior Shun." Chu Li fist saluted. Chapter 654. Chu Li frowned as he looked at her. Shuninghu said, "You're too late. She has already cut off her feelings. This time is different from last time. She's no longer in a relationship." Chu Li said, "I want to enter the surpassing state. Can I?" "As you wish," Shuninghu said. "Snow Lunar Pavilion is indebted to you. I'll talk to the pavilion leader. As long as you don't destroy it, you can do whatever you want. If you can bring Xiao Qi back, it'll be your ability." Chu Li fist saluted and thanked her again. Then he disappeared from the pagoda. Shuninghu stared at the lake again. The corners of her lips curled up. Her mood suddenly improved. Chu Li appeared by the lake in the ravine. This lake was almost the same shape as the snow lunar lake outside, just smaller. The lake water was clearer. One could see the bottom of the lake at a glance. Fishes swam leisurely in the water. Water plants swayed with the ripples of the lake water. Xiao Qi sat cross-legged on a white jade stone by the lake. She wore a white gown, and her skin was like jade. A white sword was placed on her lap. She seemed to be one with the lake water. Her aura was in harmony. She breathed along with the ripples of the lake water. There was an inexplicable rhythm. Xiao Qi's heart was like still water. There was only a sword hanging in her mind. Time seemed to have stopped. Nothing existed in her mind. If she had any other thoughts, the sword would fly up and cut them. As the sword cut off all distracting thoughts, thousands of them were cut off one by one. Finally, she had no thoughts and reached a state of selflessness. She suddenly opened her eyes and looked at the opposite side. Chu Li stood quietly by the lake in a white robe. He looked at her calmly. His face appeared in Xiaoqi's mind. When the sword slashed, it was immediately cut off. Then she looked at him with a blank gaze. Their eyes met in the air. Chu Li slowly approached her, one step at a time. His figure and face appeared in Xiaoqi's mind from time to time. Her long sword slashed it into pieces, constantly eliminating his traces and imprints. When he got closer, Chu Li sat on the jade stone. He was very close to her. Xiaoqi looked at him motionlessly. Her eyes were like water. They were calm and unwavering. Chu Li ignored her strange reaction and slowly reached out to hold her right hand. It was like a piece of white jade, cool and delicate. The sword light in Xiaoqi's mind flashed like lightning as she continuously cut off Chu Li's image. However, the scenes of the past kept surging in her mind like a tidal wave. No matter how hard she tried, she could not get rid of all of them. From time to time, there would be a fish that slipped through the net and went into the depths of her mind, so she could not get rid of it anymore. Chu Li smiled and looked at her quietly. Her bright and clear eyes flickered, and the changes were intense. Chu Li suddenly leaned forward and gently kissed her red lips. The feeling of coolness and tenderness went straight to his heart. Boom! The sky full of images swallowed her, and the sword light. Chu Li looked at her bright eyes and felt a sense of familiarity. He suddenly laughed and reached out to hold her waist, wanting to kiss her again. Xiaoqi suddenly struggled and gently pushed him away. Chu Li smiled at her. Xiaoqi shook her head. Her cheeks were blushing as if she was intoxicated. The setting sun had turned the valley into a rosy color. Her fair face was tinged with a rosy glow, making her look incomparably beautiful. Chu Li did not care about her struggle. He reached out to hold her waist and kissed her gently again. Xiaoqi's body stiffened and slowly softened. Chu Li hugged her soft and cool body. It was as if he had the whole world in his hands. He was satisfied and happy. The feeling of joy lingered in his heart. He wished that time would stop here forever. After a long time, their lips parted. Xiaoqi looked even more beautiful, making Chu Li feel a strong urge to kiss her again. Xiaoqi quickly shook her head. "There's someone. Don't worry about them," Chu Li said. He already knew that Suru and the other three were hiding in the forest 200 meters away. They were sneakily watching them. Xiaoqi could sense it, so her martial arts had obviously improved. "Why did you suddenly come here?" Xiaoqi gently pushed him. Chu Li smiled and stepped back. He stood up and Xiaoqi followed suit. The two stood side by the lake and looked at the clear lake. Their hearts were calm and happy. They chatted aimlessly and enjoyed the wonderful feeling of leisure. "I suddenly realized that the regal sword scripture that you're cultivating is a grandmaster's martial arts. Once you've mastered it, you'll descend to the grandmaster's boundary." Chu Li shook his head. "That's why I regret it. I can't just watch you ascend to the heavens." Xiaoqi revealed a smile. Chu Li said, "The High Duke's public house is now strong and prosperous. We don't need to care about others. It's others who care about us. You just need to be a lady. You don't need to work so hard. Moreover, if you really become an enlightened master, will the High Duke's public house be better?" Xiaoqi nodded. She gradually understood the path of enlightened master. It was a long and lonely path. There was no end to it. Her aunt, Shun Yinghu, was an example. She had advised herself many times not to be muddle-headed and take such a dead end. Unfortunately, the two of them had separated. She was disheartened and had no more constraints. She could only continue on. She never expected that Chu Li would suddenly come over and unreasonably molest her, breaking her state of oblivion. You should stay here, Chu Li said gently. Cultivate slowly here, and see how far you can cultivate the regal sword scripture. Don't go back to the High Duke's public house for now. Xiao Qi looked at him with her clear eyes. Is the High Duke's public house in danger? Chu Li shook his head. I'm dealing with King, and Xiao Qi frowned and pondered. Chu Li said, I don't dare to kill him. I can only torture him bit by bit. Xiao Qi smiled. You won't lose. What about second eldest sister? Second lady is in the High Duke's public house. She returns to the public house every other day. King can't control her. She's living quite freely, Chu Li said. Xiao Qi sighed softly. Chu Li knew what she was thinking. Things have come to this. Second lady chose her own path. It's not that difficult. You still have me. Then take good care of second eldest sister, Xiao Qi said. Second eldest sister has suffered too much. Chu Li nodded. The two of them stood quietly by the lake and no longer spoke. Even if they did not speak, the two of them could still feel the flow of energy between them. They felt each other's existence. Their hearts were full and happy. They only hated that time passed so quickly. Come here. Chu Li suddenly waved his hand. Suru and the other three came over. Li Hanyan, Xueling, and Jiang Kuai. Chu Li looked at them and nodded with satisfaction. The four of them had become grandmasters. It was indeed rare. It was not easy to become a grandmaster. He turned his head and smiled at Xiao Qi. Our High Duke's public house is getting more and more talented. Xiao Qi smiled softly. Lady Xiao, you guys? Suru pursed her lips and smiled. Xiao Qi gave her a sidelong glance. Suru gave Chu Li a sidelong glance. Chu Li, you're amazing. Chu Li laughed. I'm sorry. Chief Su has stepped into the Grandmaster's boundary. Congratulations. Stepping into the Grandmaster's boundary is just the beginning. I'm still far from it. Suru shook her head and smiled. I still have a lot to learn. Chu Li nodded. Chief Su still wants to stay here? Yes, Suru said. Xueling and Protector Jiang quite don't have to. Their martial arts skills are outstanding. They're better than me. Xueling smiled embarrassedly. Li Hanyan quickly said, Senior sister, what about me? You. Suru smiled. Of course, you have to continue learning. Jiang Kuai said. Chief, I can go back now. Chapter 655. Chu Li smiled and said, There's no rush. Both of you cultivate here first. It's much faster to cultivate in the surpassing state than outside. It's not too late to go out when your growth slows down. Yes, Jiang Kuai did not stand on ceremony anymore. Master, I'll go back. Xue said, You can't always be alone. Chu Li waved his hand and said, This is a rare opportunity. It's better to settle down and cultivate here. But you, Xue quickly said. Chu Li smiled and said, I have a maid now. She's a beauty bestowed by King An. Her beauty is no less than yours. Xue's bright eyes flashed. Will King An be so kind? A beauty trap. Chu Li said, Just accept it and don't fall for it. So, you cultivate well and don't worry. Su Ru pursed her lips and chuckled. She's even more worried now. Xueling hurriedly said, Chief Su. Su Ru said, All right, let's not disturb Lady Xiao. And Chu Li, let's cultivate separately. Xue and Li Hanyan left reluctantly. Chu Li watched them leave and shook his head with a smile. He turned to Xiao Qi. Xiao Qi's expression was cold, and her eyes were cold. It was as if she was a different person. He frowned and stared at Xiao Qi. A sword was quietly hanging in Xiao Qi's mind. Unknowingly, it had cut off all distracting thoughts and fantasies and returned to the state of mind as still as water. She looked at Chu Li. There was no tenderness and sweetness from before. Instead, there was a hint of disgust. It was as if he was just a common acquaintance, and she was just greeting him. She did not have the urge to talk. You. Chu Li felt that something was wrong. Xiao Qi nodded and said, "You should go back to—" Chu Li reached out to grab her hand. Swoosh! A cold light shot. Chu Li quickly let go. The tip of the sword brushed past the back of his hand. If he did not withdraw his hand, the sword would have stabbed him mercilessly. "Lady Xiao." Chu Li frowned. Xiao Qi was slightly impatient. "Frivolous person. Don't you recognize me?" Chu Li said. Xiao Qi looked at him coldly. "I don't want to talk about the past. I want to pursue the supreme path of the sword. I won't indulge in relationships. Don't disturb me again." Then just now, Chu Li was surprised. Xiao Qi said coldly, "I was just distracted for a moment. I've recovered now. Chu Li, take good care of second eldest sister, and be careful of King." And Chu Li's mind raced. He could not see the situation in Xiao Qi's mind clearly, so he could only guess. Sovereign Sword Sutra, Supreme Emotion Oblivion. He had clearly broken her Supreme Emotion Oblivion just now, so why did it change in a short while? She must have regained the state of being emotionless. He suddenly appeared behind Xiao Qi and wrapped his arms around her waist. Ding! There was a clear, ringing sound as Chu Li's palm collided with the tip of the sword. He flicked the blade of the sword with his fingernails and avoided this extremely sharp strike. The power of this sword technique was not inferior to his 7 forms of godly sword. Ding, ding, ding. He kept extending his hand, but was blocked by the cold sword, unable to do as he wished. As the number of techniques increased, Xiao Qi's expression became colder and colder. It was as if her face was covered with frost, and her entire body exuded a chilly aura. Chu Li's body movement technique suddenly sped up. He was suddenly in front and suddenly behind, drifting in an unpredictable manner. Bang! Xiao Qi's body stiffened as she was hit by Chu Li's palm. Chu Li then sealed the acupuncture points around her body with a few palm energies. Xiao Qi stared at him coldly. Her brows were slightly furrowed, and her impatience was written all over her face. She had a kind of awe-inspiring aura, without being angry. Chu Li was unmoved. He wrapped his arms around her waist and gently kissed her red lips. She pursed her red lips tightly and did not move. The cool and soft feeling was still there, but there was no emotion at all. There was only impatience as she stared at him coldly. Chu Li kissed her for a moment before he pulled back and looked at her quietly. Xiao Qi looked at him indifferently, as if she was not the one who kissed him just now. Chu Li sighed. It seemed that this technique had failed and was no longer effective. Xiao Qi said, "Don't waste your time. The Sovereign Sword Sutra is not that easy to break. You should spend more time on second eldest sister and take good care of her." Chu Li frowned and shook his head. "Sovereign Sword Sutra, why are you so concerned about the second lady, but only me?" The biggest obstacle in pursuing swordsmanship is the love between a man and a woman. Even if you cut off the love between a man and a woman, family will still exist. Chu Li, we are not fated to be together. Just forget about me, Xiao Qi said calmly. Chu Li shook his head. "I will think of a way." Xiao Qi said, "I don't want to be involved in the love between a man and a woman anymore." Chu Li scoffed. "I will come again." "I will never see you again," Xiao Qi said. Chu Li smiled and disappeared in a flash. He appeared in Shun Yinghu's pagoda. Shun Yinghu was still supporting her chin with her hand as she looked at the lake. "Senior Shun, what happened to Lady Xiao?" Chu Li asked. He told her about the situation. Shininghu pondered. It should be because of the Sovereign Sword Sutra. Young Qi is getting better now. I'm afraid it won't be that easy to break through. Don't worry, take it slow. Chu Li said, "Senior, have you not studied the Sovereign Sword Sutra?" Shin Inghu shook her head. "I can't understand it. It requires a unique talent. The Ancient Sword Sutra rarely has any records. You can go back and check. Don't be rash." Chu Li nodded, closed fist saluted, and disappeared. Early in the morning, Zhuge Feng, a feminine voice echoed throughout Crouching Bull Mountain. Zhuge Feng woke up from his meditation. His face darkened. He knew who it was immediately. It was the woman who defeated him, humiliated him, and forced him to go into isolated cultivation. He shouted and floated into the courtyard. "Surnamed Lu, how dare you? You dare to come here to die." Ha! Her feminine laughter echoed in the air. "Zhuge Feng, come here to die. I am at the foot of the mountain. Just you wait. I will kill you this time." Zhuge Feng laughed coldly. "What a joke. You are good with words, but your hands are a mess. Crouching Bull Mountain is really disappointing." Lu Yunxin's laughter was crisp and clear. Zhuge Feng shot out like an arrow. He went into isolated cultivation just for this day. Murong Chun, Xia Lian, and the other elders also flew out and followed closely behind Zhuge Feng. They were afraid that he would be at a disadvantage. The hill master went into isolated cultivation. He could not say that he could win against Lu Yunxin, so they had to hold the line. Lu Yunxin's light body technique was excellent. It was useless for them to attack her together, but they were afraid that she had people helping her. Furthermore, even if they could not win, they could still take back the hill master. They thought of Zhuge Tian as they ran. If the young master was here, he would not allow Lu Yunxin to be so presumptuous. She would probably run away in fear. When they arrived at the foot of the mountain, they saw that Lu Yunxin and the hill master were already in battle. The two of them were evenly matched. The hill master was neither at a disadvantage nor had the upper hand. The results of isolated cultivation were good. It was much better than the previous defeat. They were relieved that Lu Yunxin did not have any other masters with her. She was the only one. Crouching Bull Mountain has been hiding for a long time. Are you going to hide forever? Lu Yunxin shook her head and chuckled. Where is the little guy from last time? The young master will be here soon, Murong Chun said coldly. Don't be too happy. Lu Yunxin chuckled. Seems like the little guy is not here. I am relieved. Die. She suddenly sped up. Zhuge Feng did not want to be outdone. Bang, bang, bang. A series of muffled sounds could be heard. Their palms kept clashing, from the top of the tree to the bottom, then to the top of the tree, then to the bottom. The surrounding leaves flew in the air and were crushed into powder in the air. Bang! Suddenly, a gray shadow landed behind Zhuge Feng, and a palm landed on his back. Chapter 656. Uft! Zhuge Feng spat out a mouthful of blood in the air. He looked like a rock that had crashed into an ancient tree. Bang! The ancient tree that could reach the heavens trembled. Zhuge Feng was bounced off the ancient tree and fell to the ground again, motionless. Mountain Chieftain! Everyone was shocked. Just now, when the man in gray appeared and struck out with his palm, Lu Yunxin struck out with her palm. It was like a flash of lightning. By the time they reacted, Zhuge Feng was already lying motionless on the ground. They rushed to Zhuge Feng's side. Murong Chun and Xia Lian lowered their heads to look at Zhuge Feng's injuries. The other four elders stared at Lu Yunxin and the round-faced middle-aged man. Their faces were full of lumps and bumps, and their eyes were shining brightly. Lu Yunxin approached them slowly. The four elders were tense, ready to attack her at any time. Lu Yunxin was wearing a white veil, only revealing a pair of bright eyes, and a forehead as white as jade. She walked around Zhuge Feng lightly and shook her head. The round-faced middle-aged man's cold gaze swept across the crowd and finally landed on Zhuge Feng. He snorted, "Patrol, let's go." "Yes, Altar Master," Lu Yunxin answered respectfully. The two of them took another look at Zhuge Feng before levitating up the towering ancient tree. They stepped on the treetops and drifted away, disappearing in the blink of an eye. "Mountain Master." They looked at Zhuge Feng. Zhuge Feng was unconscious. His face was as white as paper, and blood kept flowing out of his mouth. They knew something was wrong. Murong Chun quickly took out 2 medicine bottles from his pocket, poured out a few pills, and stuffed them into Zhuge Feng's mouth. He covered Zhuge Feng's mouth to prevent him from spitting it out and patted his back. His forehead was already covered with a layer of sweat, and he was terrified. The hill chieftain knew the secrets of Crouching Bull Mountain. If he died, just like that, what would happen to the next hill chieftain? The mountain chieftain's secret heart technique would be lost. "Hurry up and go back," Murong Chun said. When the 6 of them brought Zhuge Feng to his bedroom, he was still unconscious. Xia Liyan felt his pulse and frowned in silence. Everyone wanted to help Zhuge Feng recuperate, but Zhuge Feng's injuries were too severe. His internal organs were all shattered, and he did not dare to use his inner energy at all. Their faces were gloomy, and they remained silent. The atmosphere was extremely oppressive. Never would they have thought that the Hill Master would be assassinated this time, to the point where he was on the brink of death. This was also the most crucial moment for Crouching Bull Mountain. "The adversity-surpassing pill from last time has been used up," Xia Liyan sighed, and turned to look at the 5 of them. Murong Chun and the other 4 shook their heads. "Where's the young master?" Murong Chun quickly said, "We have to find him now." "Yes, find the young master," everyone hurriedly said. Seeing that Zhuge Feng was about to die, they could do nothing but find the young master as soon as possible to prepare for his funeral. Originally, he had 2 adversity-surpassing pills that could save his life, but he had used up all of them last time. The adversity-surpassing pill was not something that first-rate sects like them could have. Only the High Duke's public house and the 4 major sects had it. The adversity-surpassing pill he had used last time had cost him a huge price, but now he couldn't get it back. Moreover, the mountain chieftain would be dead by the time he made a round trip to the Tempest Monastery. "I'll go," Xia Liyan said. He arrived at Chu Li's courtyard like a gust of wind. Qiao Sen was cultivating in the courtyard. When he saw Chu Li, he quickly bowed to greet him. "Where's your young master? Ask him to come here immediately," Xia Liyan said in a low voice. Qiao Sen saw his expression and quickly said, "Elder Xia, the young master is really not here. When will he be back?" "Don't tell me he won't be back," Xia Liyan said. Qiao Sen softly said, "Elder Xia, what happened?" "This is a matter of life and death. If he doesn't show up, the position of mountain chieftain will never be his," Xia Liyan said. "Think of a way to get him back immediately. The sooner the better. If we're late, we won't have a chance anymore." "Elder Xia, what happened?" Qiao Sen hesitated. Xia Liyan frowned and stared at him. "The mountain chieftain is heavily injured. I'm afraid it's not good." Qiao Sen's expression changed. His eyes flickered, and his expression changed again and again. Suddenly, he unsheathed his sword and stabbed it into his chest. Xia Liyan looked at him in shock. Qiao Sen slowly sat on the ground. Blood started to flow from the corner of his mouth. The young master said, that I've been with him for a long time. If anything happens to me, he will know. I'm not sure if the young master is trying to fool me. Xia Lian sighed as he watched more and more blood flow. Do you need some medicine? Xiao Sin shook his head and laid on the ground. His breathing was getting weaker. A long howl was heard. It came from afar, but when it stopped, it was right in front of him. Chu Li's white robe fluttered as he arrived. He looked at Xiao San, who was on the ground, and took out a bottle of pills. He poured one out and stuffed it into Xiao San's mouth. His palm turned into a shadow and hit Xiao San's body. Then he pulled out his sword. Not a single drop of blood came out. Xiao San's face was pale, and his lips were purple, but he smiled. Young master, you didn't lie to me. Chu Li said, You're lucky that I wasn't too far away. What happened, Elder Xia? Xia Lian said, The mountain chieftain is heavily injured. Young master, please come with me. Is he going to die? Chu Li frowned. Xia Lian sighed and shook his head. Hopefully, the mountain chieftain is blessed and will be able to survive this. Chu Li looked at his expression and knew that Zhuge Feng would not be able to survive this. Let's go and see what he has to say, Chu Li said lazily and glanced at Xiao San. Rest well and don't kill yourself. Yes, young master. Xiao San smiled. Chu Li followed Xia Lian to Zhuge Feng's bedroom and saw that Morong Chun and the others were all there. He nodded and looked at Zhuge Feng. Young master. Morong Chun sighed. I'm afraid the mountain chieftain is not going to make it. Chu Li touched Zhuge Feng's wrist and frowned. He won't die. He took out a jade bottle and poured out a pill. There was only one pill in the bottle, and he stuffed it into Zhuge Feng's mouth. Morong Chun was shocked. The adversity-surpassing pill. Chu Li turned and looked at him. You really know your stuff. Young master, how did you get the adversity-surpassing pill? Morong Chun was shocked. Chu Li said, You don't need to know how I got it. With this, he won't die, and he won't have to make any funeral arrangements. I'm leaving now. He turned and left after he finished speaking. Young master, Morong Chun quickly said, Aren't you going to stay by the mountain chieftain's side? If he opens his eyes and sees me, he will definitely be furious, he said as he walked out of the bedroom. Everyone let out a long sigh of relief. With the adversity-surpassing pill, the mountain chieftain would not die. They were really thankful. The young master still cares about the mountain chieftain. The heavens really helped the crouching bull mountain. Morong Chun sighed. Everyone nodded. They looked at each other with lingering fear. Morong Chun said, When the mountain chieftain wakes up this time, he must choose a good successor. If not, if something like this happens again, he shook his head as he said this. Everyone agreed. If it was not for the mountain chieftain's luck, he would have died. The secret technique passed down from generation to generation would be lost. The mountain chieftain's sin was too great. They were all guilty too. They had let down the ancestors of the crouching bull mountain. Chapter 657. P.S. I'm really sorry. Today's update might not be in time. When Chu Li returned to the courtyard, Xiao San was healing himself by the stone table. When he heard footsteps, Xiao San opened his eyes and asked, Young master, how is it? Chu Li sat opposite him and sized him up. He won't die. Xiao San sighed. Hill master is really blessed. Chu Li scoffed. He almost died, and that woman came again. Yes. Xiao San nodded lightly and smiled bitterly. I only heard her voice, but I didn't see her fight. I was planning to go and watch the show, but before I could leave, Elder Xia came looking for you and asked you to hurry over to the Hill Master's funeral arrangements. Lu Yanqin. Chu Li frowned. Looks like the Holy Church of Light hasn't given up yet. Do they think Crouching Bull Mountain is their weakness? clenched fists. Snow Lunar Pavilion had Dufong, so they wouldn't dare to mess around. Logically speaking, Zhuge was here too, so she wouldn't dare to come either. There should be other masters. Chu Li mumbled to himself and frowned. Ho Jingzong. He thought of masters more powerful than Lu Yunxin. Young master? Didn't the hill master say anything? Qiao Sen asked. Not yet. You're quite powerful. What if I come back late? Wouldn't you have died for nothing? Chu Li said. Qiao Sen smiled. If you don't come back soon, I'll start healing myself. Chu Li smiled and nodded. Qiao Sen asked, This time you can appoint the next hill master, right? Chu Li smiled and stood up. You did a good job calling me back. Do the same next time. Then he entered the house. Qiao Sen scratched his head and smiled bitterly. Zhuge Feng slowly woke up. When he opened his eyes, he realized he was in the familiar well. He was in his house and let out a long sigh of relief. There was a warm feeling in his chest. He was familiar with this feeling. It was the adversity surpassing pill. Didn't he already use up his adversity surpassing pill? How did he get another one? A palm behind him and another palm in front of him. He was instantly swallowed by darkness. He didn't even have time to think about who it was. Women were indeed not to be trusted. How could a woman with such powerful martial arts find someone to ambush him? Mountain chieftain? Morong Chun's voice seemed to have come from afar. It was empty and faintly discernible. It was barely discernible. He turned his head and saw Morong Chun and Xia Lian's faces. Yes. Zhuge Feng replied with difficulty. The two of them immediately smiled. Zhuge Feng took a deep breath and tried his best to circulate his inner energy, allowing the warm air to flow around his body. His facial features slowly recovered, and he could hear the sounds around him. He could see things more clearly, and he could even feel the slight movement of his hair. The feeling of escaping from the jaws of death was wonderful, but it also made him feel even more humiliated. He was too useless. This time, he had fallen into that woman's evil hands. As a mountain chieftain, he was truly pitiful and lamentable. He really didn't have the face to continue being a mountain chieftain. Mountain chieftain, are you feeling better? Xia Lian asked. Circulate your energy to heal your injuries. Zhuge Feng shook his head. Who saved me? Where did you get the pill? His mind was already clear. He knew that the pill that saved him was definitely the one that saved him. However, there were no more pills left in the sect. As a mountain chieftain, he was fortunate enough to consume 3 pills. Morong Chun and Xia Lian's pills were consumed by him. Crouching Bull Mountain had obtained a total of 3 adversity-surpassing pills, 1 for him, 1 for Xia Lian, and 1 for Morong Chun. In the end, when he was in danger, both Xia Lian and Morong Chun gave him their pills. Where did this 4th pill come from? Morong Chun and Xia Lian shook their heads. Mountain chieftain, let's not talk about this for now. You need to heal your injuries quickly. Where did the pill come from? Why did you hide something like this from me? Zhuge Feng frowned. It was given by the young master. Morong Chun sighed. That bastard? Where did he get the pill? Zhuge Feng scoffed. The two of them shook their heads. They were curious as well. Morong Chun said, no matter what, Mountain Chieftain's life was saved. Zhuge Feng's face darkened. Xia Lian said, they are father and son after all. When it's time to save them, the young master will still save them. I would rather die, Zhuge Feng said coldly. Morong Chun and Xia Lian looked at each other and coughed. The other 4 elders pushed the door open and closed fist saluted Zhuge Feng. Hill Chieftain. Zhuge Feng nodded. Morong Chun and Xia Lian suddenly took 2 steps back and knelt in front of the bed. The other 4 elders knelt behind them. The 6 of them knelt in front of the bed and looked at him calmly. Zhuge Feng was stunned and quickly waved his hand. "What are you doing?" He was weak and could not move vigorously. He could not get out of bed and could only worry. A man's knees were made of gold. He kneeled to the heavens, to the earth, and to his parents. Even the officials only bowed to the emperor. The disciples only held their fists and bowed to him, the hill chieftain. They had never done such a thing before. Morong Chun said, "The 6 elders are begging you to appoint the next hill chieftain immediately and pass down the heart technique. We cannot become the sinners of Crouching Bull Mountain." Zhuge Feng put down his hand and sighed. He looked at their determined expressions and slowly nodded. "All right, I promise you." Everyone was overjoyed. They did not expect Zhuge Feng to agree so easily. They thought they had to persuade him. Morong Chun said, "Hill chieftain, the young lord can be the next hill chieftain." "Impossible." Zhuge Feng shook his head and said, "I will appoint the next hill chieftain tomorrow, but it will not be him." "Hill chieftain? If it's not the young lord, what's the point of appointing the next hill chieftain? If the hill chieftain is defeated and dies, how can the next hill chieftain survive? Only the young lord's divine power can protect himself and ensure that the Crouching Bull Mountain does not end. I have decided to appoint Murong Liang as the next hill chieftain. You don't have to say anything more. Step down." Zhuge Feng waved his hand. "Hill chieftain. He only knows how to play petty tricks. His talent is only average. He can't take on such a big responsibility," Morong Chun said. Zhuge Feng fell on the bed and turned his head away. He would not change his mind, even if they knelt until they died. Everyone looked at each other helplessly and stood up. Xia Lian looked at Morong Chun. "If it doesn't work, then pass it to Morong Liang." Morong Chun shook his head. He can't take on such a big responsibility. If he really becomes the next hill chieftain, he will be digging his own grave. Although he doesn't care, as his father, I can't just watch him die. As soon as he finished speaking, he strode away. In the middle of the night, the moonlight was like water. Chu Li glided to Zhuge Feng's courtyard. "Who is it?" A young man in a blue shirt shouted. He stood up from the shadows with his hand on his sword. Chu Li glanced at him. "Lil Tang, I want to talk to him." "Yes." Lil Tang nodded and stepped back. Chu Li pushed the door open and entered the bedroom. He went to Zhuge Feng's bed. The bedroom was brightly lit. Zhuge Feng was sitting cross-legged on the bed to heal himself. When he heard movement, he opened his eyes and looked at Chu Li. His gaze was cold without a trace of warmth. Chu Li took out a silk book and passed it to Zhuge Feng. "This is the secret manual I got. Didn't you destroy it?" Zhuge Feng said coldly. He did not take it. "Don't you want to see what kind of secret manual it is?" Chu Li said calmly. He did not make fun of his hypocrisy. He was curious and wanted to take it, but he suppressed it. He pretended that he did not care and did not even look at it. Chapter 658. Chu Li said calmly, "I found this in a cave. There was a skeleton next to it. It had been dead for many years, but this secret manual was not damaged. I brought it back and tried to cultivate it. I didn't think that I would be able to master it on my first try. Now, I have this swordsmanship." Zhuge Feng snorted. What Chu Li did earlier was to loosen the reins only to grasp better. It was in line with Zhuge Tian's original temperament and would not raise any suspicions. After all the acting was done, it was time to reap the rewards. If Zhuge Feng really waited until tomorrow to make his decision, there would be many twists and turns to change his mind. Crouching Bull Mountain might not even fall into his hands. As for the secret manual, he had obtained another one. It was indeed the cloud-slashing treasure manual, but it only contained the cloud-slashing sword technique, and not the cloud-slashing power, so its power was greatly reduced. However, the power of the cloud-slashing sword technique itself was astonishing enough. He had already integrated the cloud-slashing sword technique into the 7 forms of godly sword, and its power far surpassed that of the cloud-slashing sword technique. Thus, handing over the cloud-slashing sword technique would not affect him much. If you want to take something, you must first give. If you don't take out the real thing, it would be very difficult to exchange for the position of mountain chieftain. Zhuge Feng frowned and did not say anything. He suppressed his curiosity and did not look at the secret manual. Chu Li said, "This secret manual is a sword technique called the cloud-slashing sword technique, also known as the cloud-slashing treasure manual." Cloud-slashing treasure manual? Zhuge Feng cried out. Chu Li looked outside the house. Zhuge Feng quickly restrained his voice and leaned forward. "Is it really the cloud-slashing treasure manual?" Chu Li nodded. "I heard that it's called that. Cloud-slashing treasure manual." Zhuge Feng muttered. How could he not know about the power of the cloud-slashing treasure manual? It was a legendary secret manual that had caused a commotion in the martial arts circle some time ago. It had set off a bloody storm, and several sects had been destroyed because of it. Even though the matter was left unsettled in the end, the people's desire for the cloud-slashing treasure manual was evident. He would never have thought that the cloud-slashing treasure manual that was desperately sought after by the people of the martial arts world and was rumored to have fallen into the hands of Chu Li of the Yi public house was actually in the hands of his own son. Moreover, it had been cultivated by him and was now placed right in front of him. He had never expected this. He had always felt that the cloud-slashing treasure manual was out of his reach, but now it was right in front of him. Chu Li pushed the silk booklet forward. "Do you want to take a look?" Zhuge Feng suppressed his impulse and glared at him. "What do you want? Why did you hand over the secret manual?" Chu Li said calmly, "It's about the next hill master." "You want to be the hill master? You can't." Zhuge Feng frowned. Chu Li replied, "Why can't I? With my martial arts, I can roam the world freely, but you should know why I can't let go of Crouching Bull Mountain." "I know," Zhuge Feng scoffed. "But do you know how heavy the responsibility of the Crouching Bull Mountain is? Once you put it on, you will never have peace for the rest of your life." "It's not a big deal," Chu Li said calmly. "As long as my martial arts is strong enough, it's nothing." Zhuge Feng shook his head and said, "The Crouching Bull Mountain has internal and external troubles. You shouldn't have gotten involved. It's better for you to live a carefree life." "What is the internal problem?" Chu Li asked. "Can martial arts suppress it? What about foreign aggression? Can martial arts solve it?" Zhuge Feng frowned and looked at him. Chu Li said, "I want to be the hill master." "This secret manual is considered as an exchange for the position of hill master?" Zhuge Feng pointed at the secret manual in his hands. Chu Li nodded. "Yes, this secret manual can be given to the Crouching Bull Mountain." Zhuge Feng remained silent. He was thinking, if it was him, would he hand over the cloud-slashing treasure manual and get the position of hill master? No matter how he thought about it, he could not. He would not be willing to hand over the cloud-slashing treasure manual. It seemed like he admired his mother and wanted to fulfill his mother's wish to make the Crouching Bull Mountain flourish. "You're really willing?" Zhuge Feng asked. Chu Li said calmly, "It's just a sword technique. What's there to be unwilling about? If I want to improve the strength of the Crouching Bull Mountain, I need better martial arts." "You really don't want to take a look?" Zhuge Feng finally reached out and took the secret manual. He suppressed his excitement and gritted his teeth. He touched the antique silk manual and could not wait to open it. After a while, he slowly put down the silk manual and sighed. Chu Li said calmly, How is it as expected of the Cloud Slashing Treasure Manual? Not everyone can learn it. It's too complicated. Zhuge Feng put down the secret manual. This required a person with extreme intelligence to learn it. Those without brains would not be able to learn it. The requirement for talent was extremely high. There were probably less than 3 people in the Crouching Bull Mountain who could learn this sword technique. He looked up at Chu Li and sighed in his heart. He did not expect his son to be such a smart guy. It seemed like he inherited his mother's mind. It was a pity that he did not teach him well. Chu Li said, "It's not difficult for me to learn it. I don't know if others can learn it, but the power is really shocking." Zhuge Feng nodded slowly. "Since you want to be the Hill Master and have the Cloud Slashing Treasure Manual, I promise you that the next Hill Master will be you." Chu Li said in a low voice, "I will make the Crouching Bull Mountain stronger." This Cloud Slashing Treasure Manual can only be passed down from generation to generation. It cannot be passed down to ordinary disciples. Zhuge Feng said. Chu Li frowned. "Why?" "It's too powerful. Once it's passed down, the consequences will be unpredictable." Zhuge Feng said. Chu Li shook his head. "The Cloud Slashing Treasure Manual is nothing. It's not better than the martial arts of the 4 major sections." Zhuge Feng scoffed. "That might not be true. Also, do you think you can learn the martial arts of the 4 major sects?" Chu Li said, "All right, then it's the secret manual passed down from generation to generation. What do I need to know to become the next Hill Master?" The fundamental heart technique of the Crouching Bull Mountain comes from the insight of Crouching Bull. You need to remember the insight of Crouching Bull. But we only have the first half of the insight of Crouching Bull. Zhuge Feng frowned. "The second half is lost. The second half is in the Skyward Palace. So if you want to make the Crouching Bull Mountain flourish, you need to get the second half back first." Zhuge Feng said, "The Skyward Palace." Chu Li thought about it and shook his head. He had never heard of it. Zhuge Feng scoffed. "They are a hidden faction. They were founded by an original disciple of the Crouching Bull Mountain." Chu Li said, "Enemies? I can't be considered an enemy, but I am still an enemy. Once there are external enemies, the 2 factions will unite and help each other. But usually they will secretly compete with each other to get the other's half of the insight of Crouching Bull." Chu Li nodded. "Like quarreling brothers." Zhuge Feng said, "Other than the Skyward Palace, there's also the Surpassing State." Chu Li said, "Where is the Surpassing State? Why haven't I seen it?" "The Surpassing State is 1,000 miles away." Zhuge Feng said. Chu Li was surprised. Zhuge Feng said, "Because of the distance, the faction's control over the Surpassing State has gradually weakened. Now, there are 2 elders hidden in the Surpassing State. They have formed their own faction and are secretly competing with the faction." Chu Li frowned. "Their martial arts are the strongest?" Zhuge Feng slowly nodded. Chu Li said, "What's the point of being a Hill Master?" With internal and external troubles, he was bound and had no freedom. Zhuge Feng stared at him and scoffed. "You think it's so easy to be a Hill Master?" Chu Li said, "Actually, it's nothing much. It's just that your martial arts are not strong enough. You can practice this sword technique. If it doesn't work, I'll just take action." Zhuge Feng said slowly, "Tomorrow I will announce that you are the next Hill Master and pass you the insight of Crouching Bull." Chu Li nodded. "All right, I'm leaving." He did not wait for Zhuge Feng to reply and turned to leave the bedroom. Chapter 659. P.S. Last night, the lass had a fever of 40 degrees. Today, she went to the hospital in the city. The doctor was scared out of his wits. He has been in a state of panic. He tried his best to calm down, and right. He can only try his best. I can't reply to every comment today. On the second day, when Morong Chun and Xia Lian were about to persuade the hill leader to appoint Zhuge Tian as the next hill leader, Zhuge Feng suddenly said, I have thought about it for a whole night. I have decided that the next hill leader will be Zhuge Tian. The 6 elders were shocked and then overjoyed. Amidst the joy, there was some confusion. They did not know why Zhuge Feng suddenly changed his mind. According to his previous attitude, he would not agree no matter what they said. They were already prepared for a long time. They did not expect him to change his mind in one night. Leader, how did you change your mind? Morong Chun asked. Zhuge Feng said, his martial arts is indeed better. I have suffered enough because I am not strong enough. I do not want the next leader to end up like me. Morong Chun nodded. Ever since the last time, he understood that to the leader of Crouching Bull Mountain, martial arts was the foundation and the backbone of the sect. If the leader's martial arts were not strong enough, there was no point in talking about it. Zhuge Feng said, although that bastard is unworthy, his martial arts are indeed top-notch. If I insist on pushing him out, it will be a huge loss to the sect. From today onwards, let him return to the sect. I hope everyone will not blame me for changing my mind. It's okay to change your mind, as long as it's for the good of the sect. Morong Chun smiled. Xia Lian said, congratulations to the leader for being able to change his mind. Today, I will pass on the leader's heart technique to him. I will also pass on the secrets of the sect to him. If I am not alive, all of you will assist him. Leader, don't say such inauspicious things. How could the leader not be alive? Morong Chun said. Zhuge Feng scoffed. That's hard to say. He has been doing things more methodically lately. All of you should advise him, and not let him do anything rash. Yes. The 6 closed fists saluted. Chu Li followed Zhuge Feng to a cliff at the back of the mountain. Below them was a deep valley. Looking out, a strong wind blew against their faces. The whistling sound was shrill, as if there were ghosts hiding in the valley that wanted to pull people down. Follow me down, Zhuge Feng said, and jumped down. Chu Li floated down to the ground. When Zhuge Feng fell to 1,000 feet, he suddenly shouted, "We're almost there!" With a sway of his body, he stuck close to the moss-covered cliff and fiercely patted a rock 4 times. With a muffled rumble, a cave entrance appeared, and he floated in. Zhuge Feng stared in front of him and said in a low voice, "Remember my steps. One wrong step, and there will be a fatal trap. No matter how strong you are, you won't be able to dodge it." Chu Li nodded and followed closely behind him, stepping on every single one of his footprints. Through the omniscient mirror, he could see the traps in the stone walls. There were sharp arrows and daggers. Every arrow and dagger was a dark blue, sharp and vicious. They were all over the 2 sides of the stone walls. There were huge rocks above their heads and traps under their feet. There were short spears in the traps. If they fell into the traps, they would become sieves. The 2 of them came to a stone room. The stone room was surrounded by colorful murals. The people in the murals were lifelike. Their faces were similar, and their skin was white. There were long red and blue lines that were the flow of the meridians. Chu Li glanced at them and imprinted them in his mind. He carefully analyzed them. There were 2 sets of martial arts. One was an inner energy heart technique, and the other was a fist technique. He realized that these 2 sets of martial arts were not easy to cultivate. The people looked easy, but the flow of inner energy was extremely difficult. It was as if there was an invisible force blocking it. Zhuge Feng said, "This is the inside of Crouching Bull. Unfortunately, it's only half. The inner energy heart technique and fist technique are both half, so their power is greatly reduced. if you can completely master the crouching bull power and crouching bull punch, you will be able to dominate the world. Chu Li said, then Skyward Palace only has the second half. Isn't that even worse? The first half was usually the basics and beginners. The second half was the full power. Without the second half, the power would be slightly weaker. Without the first half, it would be impossible to cultivate. Zhuge Feng scoffed. They don't cultivate the crouching bull power and crouching bull punch. It's just a martial art from a sect that was destroyed, Skyward Sect. Chu Li frowned. If that's the case, why can't we steal it? Because the Hill Master made a vow to never steal the martial arts from Skyward Palace. Zhuge Feng said. Chu Li shook his head and could not help but laugh. It was no wonder that Crouching Bull Mountain was on the decline. They did all sorts of inexplicable things and caused all sorts of inexplicable things. It seemed like the greatest ability of the previous Hill Masters was to harm the younger generation. Chu Li said, if that's the case, how do we steal the martial arts from Skyward Palace? Zhuge Feng said, we have to make them return it willingly. Willingly? Chu Li smiled. Zhuge Feng said, I'll leave this to you. Don't leave it to the next Hill Master. I'll try my best. Chu Li did not dare to speak too confidently. He did not understand Skyward Palace at all. I'll give you 2 days. Can you remember these? Zhuge Feng pointed at the stone wall. Chu Li shook his head. I've already memorized them. Zhuge Feng was stunned. So fast. I have enough brains, Chu Li said. Zhuge Feng sighed. He did not expect his son to be so smart. It was no wonder he could master the cloud slashing sword technique. If that's the case, then let's go, Zhuge Feng said. With the Crouching Bull power, the power of the various martial arts of the Crouching Bull Mountain can be unleashed. As the next Hill Master of the Crouching Bull Mountain, you should practice the Crouching Bull power well. Chu Li said, I want to know where Skyward Palace is. What do you want to do? Zhuge Feng scoffed. He walked out and Chu Li stepped on his feet. The footprints he made when he came in and when he left were different. Chu Li said, I'll check it out first. In a deep mountain 1,000 miles away. Qiao San knows. Let him bring you there, Zhuge Feng said. The two of them chatted as they left the cave. The stone door closed and blended into the surroundings. If it was not led by someone, others would not have discovered it. Even if they knew there was a cave, they would not have found it. When the two returned to the main hall, they saw that there were guests. Xia Lian was talking to an old man and a young man. The rest of the elders were not there. Greetings, Hill Master. Seeing them come in, the old man and the young man stood up and closed-fist saluted. The old man was plump, and his smile was dignified. Even though he was smiling, no one dared to underestimate him. The young man was not handsome, but he had a calm demeanor. His body was thin, but gave people a strong feeling. It was as if his thin body contained a huge amount of power. His eyes were calm, and his smile was relaxed. Zhuge Feng closed-fist saluted back and frowned. Elder, why are you here? He, Hill Master, do you still remember Tianji? The old man Huarong pointed at the young man and smiled. Lu Tianji. Of course I remember Tianji. Zhuge Feng glanced at Lu Tianji and nodded. He sat in the armchair in the middle. Elder, why didn't you tell me in advance so that I could go down the mountain to welcome you? I'm not that arrogant. Huarong waved his hand. I came back this time to send Tianji off. Let him cultivate in the sect for a while and get along well with his peers. This is also for the future. Xia Lian said, what are your plans for the future? Chapter 660. Xia Lian glanced at Zhuge Feng. Zhuge Feng remained silent. Xia Lian did not speak either. Chu Li did not speak either. He looked at Hu Huarong and Lu Tianji. Hu Huarong's cultivation level was higher than Zhuge Feng's, and Lu Tianji was only slightly lower. It was rare to see someone at such a young age. While he was looking at the two, they were also looking at him. Seeing that Chu Li's aura was normal and his cultivation level was average, far inferior to Lu Tianji, they no longer paid attention to him and turned to Zhuge Feng. Hill Master, is Tianji not qualified? Hu Huarong stroked his silver beard and smiled. Among the younger generation of disciples in Crouching Bull Mountain, no one can match Tianji's cultivation level. Their qualifications and wisdom are all lower than Tianji's, so the next Hill Master must be Tianji. Zhuge Feng hesitated. He was thinking about how to say it tactfully, so that Hu Huarong would not be embarrassed and the situation between Surpassing State and Crouching Bull Mountain would not become more tense. Hu Huarong looked at Chu Li. This young brother is... Xia Lian said, this is young Lord Zhuge Tian. So it's young Lord. Hu Huarong looked at Chu Li again and nodded. You are indeed talented. Xia Lian coughed. Elder, we want young Lord to take over the position of Hill Master. Oh. Hu Huarong's eyebrows twitched and he laughed. Do we really have to do that? He looked at Zhuge Feng and said with a smile, Hill Master, you can't ignore the public for personal reasons. Hill Master has deep feelings for Madam, so you can't let the young master take over as Hill Master because of that. After all, the most important thing for the position of Hill Master is martial arts. Yes, Xia Lian nodded and looked at Lu Tianji. He was assessing whether Lu Tianji's cultivation level could beat young Lord. Lu Tianji should not be underestimated. He was stronger than him at such a young age. If young Lord did not appear, he would be a qualified candidate for the next Hill Master. Unfortunately, Lu Tianji was born at the wrong time with young Lord. Hu Huarong said, I think the root of why Crouching Bull Mountain is getting worse with each generation is because of the Hill Master. How can Crouching Bull Mountain recover? Zhuge Feng's face darkened, and he scoffed. Elder Hu, it is true that my cultivation level is low, and I have let down the Crouching Bull Mountain. Hu Huarong waved his hand and shook his head. We can't blame the Hill Master for this. We can only blame the Skyward Palace. However, the heavens have finally shown mercy, and our Crouching Bull Mountain has finally produced a genius. As long as Tianji becomes the Hill Master, the revitalization of Crouching Bull Mountain will be just around the corner. Xia Lian said, but young master, Hu Huarong waved his hand and said, I know that the young lord is Madam's son, and that the mountain chieftain has deep feelings for Madam. Loving the house and its crow, he wishes for the young lord to take over as the mountain chieftain to comfort Madam's soul in heaven. However, the position of mountain chieftain is extremely important and cannot tolerate such personal feelings. Even if Madam is still alive, she will not allow the mountain chieftain to do so. Zhuge Feng frowned. He was unhappy. He could not tolerate anyone being disrespectful to his wife. Hu Huarong's tone carried this kind of meaning, which made him extremely disgusted. Xia Lian said, then, according to what Elder Hu said, the next Hill Master should be the one with the strongest martial arts, right? That's right. Hu Huarong nodded and smiled. Of course, his intelligence cannot be too bad, lest others say that our Crouching Bull Mountain chieftain is a fool and it will ruin the reputation of our Crouching Bull Mountain. Then Elder, who thinks that Lu Tianji will definitely win against the young lord? Xia Lian said. Hu Huarong was startled, and then he laughed. Why, little Xia, do you have any other thoughts? It's obvious. Xia Lian shook his head and said, that might not be the case. In my opinion, Lu Tianji is not a match for the young lord. Hu Huarong laughed. Another one who is biased towards the young lord because of Madam. The next Hill Chieftain can decide the future of our crouching bull mountain, we must be extremely cautious and not be swayed by our emotions. How about this? Xia Lian said. There's no point in us saying so much. Let Lu Tianji and the young lord have a match, and the winner will be the next Hill Chieftain. How about it, Elder Hu? Isn't that fair? Oh, that's not bad. Hu Huarong nodded lightly and looked at Chu Li thoughtfully. Lu Tianji also looked at Chu Li deeply. Chu Li stood there lazily and looked at them with great interest. All right, then let's have a match tomorrow. Hu Huarong laughed. Tomorrow, let's go to the martial arts field on the mountain and let everyone witness it. Very good. Xia Lian nodded hurriedly and closed fist saluted at Zhuge Feng. Hill Chieftain, how about this? Zhuge Feng looked at Lu Tianji, then looked at Chu Li and sighed. That's good too. Martial arts will determine the winner. It's the fairest. Whoever loses will have nothing to say. Hee, it seems that the young lord's martial arts is amazing. Little Xia and Hill Chieftain are both confident. Hu Huarong smiled. Then let's see the young lord's ability. I'm also very curious. Chu Li yawned lazily, closed fist saluted. If there's nothing else, I'll go back and take a nap. Go. Zhuge Feng waved his hand. Xia Lian closed fist saluted. Chu Li nodded and retreated lazily, ignoring Hu Huarong and Lu Tianji. Hu Huarong stroked his beard and smiled, but he was secretly angry. Lu Tianji looked at his back thoughtfully. By the time the two returned to Hu Huarong's courtyard, the sun was already setting, and the courtyard was dyed a rose color. The two sat at the stone table in the courtyard. Although Hu Huarong lived in the surpassing state, the courtyard here had always been kept, and there were people cleaning it every day. Master, we came at the right time. Lu Tianji served Hu Huarong a cup of tea, and then sat opposite him. The Hill Chieftain has not recovered from his serious injuries, and wants to appoint the young lord as the next Hill Chieftain. Hu Huarong said, The young lord is a playboy. How can he become the Hill Chieftain? Looking at Elder Xia's expression, this young lord must be hiding his strength. Lu Tianji took a sip of tea and said in a low voice, I'm afraid his cultivation level is not ordinary. Little Xia is not scheming. Hu Huarong smiled. Since he thinks so highly of the young lord, then the young lord's martial arts will not be too weak. But no matter how strong he is, how can he be stronger than you? Tianji? He has never entered the surpassing state, but you grew up in the surpassing state. Lu Tianji shook his head. Sometimes aptitude can make up for this. Master, I want to go check out the situation tonight. Oh, you can't be wrong to be this careful. Hu Huarong said, See if he is hiding his strength. If I am not his opponent, then I will have to trouble you, Master. Lu Tianji smiled. Hu Huarong smiled. Don't worry, if you are not his opponent, I will secretly injure him. If he is not as good as you, then you will defeat him fair and square. Yes. Lu Tianji nodded and smiled. Hu Huarong sighed. I really do not want to use this method, but Zhuge Feng is really disappointing. Lu Tianji said, Master, I will make our crouching bull mountain rise again. Yes, the hope is on you. Hu Huarong's spirit was lifted, and he smiled. If I can see crouching bull mountain regain its glory before I die, I can laugh in front of my ancestors. Master, don't worry. Lu Tianji said. Hu Huarong patted him on the shoulder and showed a gratified expression. Lu Tianji took a big gulp, put down the teacup, and stood up. I will go now. Go. Hu Huarong smiled. Check out his situation. Chapter 661. P.S. Update complete. I really can't write the 6th chapter. Sorry. When he arrived at Chu Li's courtyard, He saw Qiao Sen standing at the door. I am Lu Tianji. Greetings, Elder Qiao. I want to meet the young lord and discuss with him about tomorrow's competition. Lu Tianji, fist saluted. Qiao Sen snorted with a cold expression. The young lord is cultivating and will not see any guests. Lu Tianji smiled. Isn't it too late for the young lord to cultivate now? Do you think the young lord is cultivating to deal with you? Qiao Sen said snappily. The young lord has been cultivating like this all along. Don't flatter yourself. Elder Qiao, why are you so hostile towards me? Lu Tianji shook his head. I will not do anything to the young lord, even if I become the hill master. After all, there is the old hill master. Elder Qiao, you are worrying too much. You are not the hill master yet. Qiao Sen laughed. You already consider yourself the hill master. Our young lord is the future hill master. Lu Tianji shook his head. The young lord is not my opponent. Ha ha. Qiao Sen laughed. Lu Tianji, you are really arrogant and ridiculous. Lu Tianji said, I am speaking the truth. I am not arrogant. Let him in. Chu Li's voice sounded. Yes, young lord. Qiao Sen bowed, then his face darkened as he scoffed. Please. Lu Tianji fist saluted with a smile and pushed open the door of the courtyard. Chu Li sheathed his sword and sat down at the stone table. He pointed to the opposite side. Sit down and talk. Lu Tianji sat opposite him and smiled. The young lord is in a good mood, practicing swordsmanship at this time. I am bored. It is much better than meeting a boring person like you. Chu Li said lazily. What are you doing here? We have not met before. There is nothing to talk about, right? Lu Tianji shook his head. We are from the same sect. There is naturally affection between us. There is no need for the young lord to keep me at arm's length. I hate self-righteous people like you. Chu Li shook his head. It is as if you are the heaven's favored one, and everyone else has to listen to you. The young lord is too serious. Lu Tianji said, if others are right, I will also listen to them. In this world, logic is logic. It will not change because of anyone. All right, what are you doing here? Chu Li waved his hand and said, I don't have time to talk nonsense with you. Lu Tianji said, does young lord feel that our hill chieftain is doing his job well? What does it matter to you whether I'm competent or not? Chu Li said lazily. Lu Tianji shook his head and said, Master and the others had high hopes for hill chieftain, but hill chieftain disappointed Master and the others. Surpassing Realm is somewhat resistant to the sex orders because they are too disappointed. Chu Li scoffed. So what? The hill leader is the hill leader. Whoever disagrees with the hill leader can go against his orders. In that case, we might as well disband the sect and go our separate ways. As the hill master, one must have outstanding martial arts skills to suppress everyone else. Lu Tianji shook his head. The hill master's current cultivation level is very ordinary. He has dragged down the crouching bull mountain. So, your master wants to usurp the throne. Chu Li scoffed. Lu Tianji hurriedly waved his hand and said, Of course, Master will not usurp the throne. However, it is imperative that we choose a new mountain chieftain. My aptitude is still good, and Master and the others feel that I am the most suitable to be the mountain chieftain. They missed it once before. Who knows if you will be the next Zhuge Feng? Chu Li said lightly. Lu Tianji slowly said, I will not let Master and the others down. Chu Li scoffed. Are you done? If you are, then get lost. Lu Tianji faced his cold face and was not angry at all. Instead, he smiled. I heard some news, but I don't know if I should tell you, young lord. He did not expect that these words would not make Zhuge Tian act. It seemed that the relationship between the father and son was indeed indifferent. He needed to find a new target to attack in order to anger Zhuge Tian. What news? Chu Li asked. Lu Tianji shook his head and sighed. Forget it. It is better not to say. Then forget it. Chu Li stood up. Lu Tianji said, but I think it is good to let young lord know. Chu Li picked up his sword and hung it on his waist, preparing to leave. Lu Tianji said, Young lord, do you know why the Hill Master has been so cold to you all these years? Chu Li glanced at him. You know, everyone knows that the Hill Master has deep feelings for the madam. Lu Tianji said, Then why did the Hill Master not care about the child that the madam gave birth to and let the child fend for himself? Does this make sense? Mother had a difficult birth and died because of me, Chu Li said. Lu Tianji shook his head. The madam's death was God's will. How can young lord be blamed? The Hill Master should understand this, and should have forgiven young lord long ago. Why can't he untie the knot in his heart and hate young lord so much? Chu Li smiled. You know, because young lord is not the Hill Master's flesh and blood. Lu Tianji said. Chu Li was startled and then shook his head. You really know how to make up stories. You thought of this in a flash. It is really hard on you. If it was the real Zhuge Tian, he would definitely go all out. How could he not be furious when the pure and holy mother in his heart was said to be a disloyal woman? Young lord doesn't believe me? Lu Tianji said. Then how about letting everyone judge the truth? Chu Li said, You want to provoke me into making a move and find out the truth about me? He had long seen through Lu Tianji's thoughts. These words were made up by Lu Tianji. However, once it was spread, it would cause an uproar. Zhuge Feng's prestige would be greatly damaged. As the young lord, his position would also be awkward. This rumor could be said to be malicious. Lu Tianji smiled. I also heard these words from others. I think it is most likely true. Your master? Chu Li slowly pulled out his long sword. He said it himself. About this. It is not my master. Lu Tianji shook his head. Chu Li lightly shook his long sword. Then I will fulfill your wish. I will let you see what I am capable of. As soon as he finished speaking, the tip of the sword pierced Lu Tianji's throat. It was as if it had transcended the restraints of space. The sword had already reached its destination without going through the middle process. Lu Tianji took a step back and leaned his upper body backward to avoid the tip of the sword. Chi! The tip of the sword pierced downwards and pierced through his dantian. It was quickly pulled out. Ah! Lu Tianji could not help but scream. Chu Li shook his long sword. The blade was as bright as new. He returned the sword to its sheath. He looked at Lu Tianji, whose eyes were wide open and clutched his dantian in disbelief. This time, I will teach you a lesson. I will let you know that some words cannot be spoken carelessly. As the saying goes, a loose tongue causes trouble. You understand now? You? Lu Tianji felt his inner energy rapidly draining away. He was frightened and in disbelief. He had always been sure that Chu Li could not do anything to him. Even if he were to attack in anger, he would be safe. Martial arts was the foundation of everything. Without martial arts, everything would be over. His grand ambitions would all be for naught. Chu Li said, Your injury is not serious. Once you are healed, you will be able to regain your martial arts after a few more years of training. You are still young. It is not a big deal to have your martial arts crippled. However, you should also change your temperament. The martial arts world is dangerous. You will suffer a lot sooner or later if you act like this. All right, I will not send you off. Go back by yourself. He then raised his voice. Qiao San, let's go. Yes, young lord, Qiao San hurriedly responded. Chapter 662. P.S. I didn't write 6 chapters yesterday, and I feel very uneasy. Today, I will try to write more to make up for it. Where are you going? Lu Tianji clutched his dantian and pressed his chest a few times. He took out a jade porcelain bottle from his bosom and popped the 2 pills in the bottle into his mouth. While he was doing this, his eyes were fixed on Chu Li. Zhuge Tian, are you trying to escape? Chu Li turned his head to look at him and suddenly laughed. I'm going to receive my own punishment. It's a sin to accidentally injure someone in a sparring match. Why should I run away? Brother Lu, you think too much of your master. Zhuge Tian, I didn't expect you to be so sinister. Why would you do such a vicious thing? Lu Tianji glared at him angrily. We are from the same sect. Chu Li shook his head and said, if you really had the feelings of a fellow disciple, you wouldn't have said those words. After I apologize, I will question Elder Hu face to face. How did he teach his disciple to be so vicious? After saying that, he ignored him and strode away. Qiao San looked worriedly at Lu Tianji and helplessly followed Chu Li. If it had been anyone else, it wouldn't matter if they were crippled or even killed. He viewed them as ants, and the death of 1 or 2 of them was nothing to him. But this was Lu Tianji, Hu Huarong's disciple, the disciple whom Hu Huarong had fervently hoped to inherit the position of the next hill master. Yet he was crippled just like that, and Hu Huarong's hopes were crushed. Qiao San didn't need to think too much to guess Hu Huarong's reaction. He would definitely go crazy and kill the young master. Hu Huarong could not be compared to the hill master. His martial arts were the best in the Crouching Bull Mountain. He was old, his cultivation was deep, and he had a lot of experience. The young lord might not be able to handle him. Chu Li strode to the main hall, ignoring the protectors outside, and went straight in. Zhuge Feng and the 6 elders were all present in the hall. Young lord, Morong Chun noticed that Chu Li's expression was cold and did not look right. Chu Li said, everyone, there's no need to talk about Lu Tianji anymore. I've already crippled him. Crippled? Zhuge Feng frowned. What crippled? Cripple his martial arts. Chu Li said. Zhuge Feng's body suddenly straightened, his gaze sharp. Morong Chun, Xia Lian, and the others were shocked. Zhuge Feng looked at Qiao San. Qiao San smiled bitterly and nodded. Lu Tianji came to the small courtyard to look for young lord just now. Young lord was originally practicing his swordsmanship and did not receive visitors, but Lu Tianji insisted on seeing young lord and even provoked young lord. Chu Li looked at him lazily. Qiao San continued. After he met the young master, he insulted him and kept provoking the young master. In the end, the young master pulled out his sword and stabbed him. Coincidentally, he was injured in his dantian. Chu Li waved his hand to interrupt Qiao San's words. Lu Tianji came to look for me on the eve of the competition. Could it be to improve our relationship? He wants to test my strength. If my martial arts skill is not strong, he will definitely win. But if my martial arts skill is stronger than his, he will let Hu Huarong injure me, and then he will win. Don't talk nonsense. Zhuge Feng said in a deep voice, don't measure the heart of a gentleman with your own mean measure. Chu Li laughed and looked at Morong Chun and Xia Lian. Elders, do you believe that he is a good person and wants to talk to me through the night? Well, Morong Chun said, these speculations cannot be proven. If Elder Hu comes, it would be useless to say this, because Elder Hu will definitely not let this go. Chu Li smiled. He is the mastermind. How can he let this go? You. Zhuge Feng pointed at him. A little impatience will spoil a great plan. Since you can see through his thoughts, then just fool him a little. You can show your power during the competition. Why do you have to create such a mess? Chu Li said, he kept provoking me, and this is the consequence of angering me. Just treat it as a fart. Zhuge Feng said in a deep voice. You just can't keep your cool. Chu Li said, he said that I am not your flesh and blood. I am born from my mother with another man. Bang! Zhuge Feng slammed the armrest of the armchair. Crash! The armchair fell apart and became a pile of broken wood. Zhuge Feng stood up and laughed coldly. Did he really say that? Chu Li said, would I make this up? An evil person, he deserves to die. Zhuge Feng said coldly, you should have killed him with one strike. Chu Li looked at Morong Chun and Xia Lian. Morong Chun and the other 5 showed an angry expression. Lu Tianji's words touched their sore spot. They all respected and loved Zhuge Tian's mother, and could not tolerate such slander and humiliation. It seemed that if they were present, they would have done it too. Chu Li said, after hearing this, I am not worthy to be his son. I did not kill him because I wanted to save Elder, whose face. Damn it, Zhuge Feng scoffed. Young master is right to cripple him. Some things can be tolerated, but some things cannot. Morong Chun scoffed. This Lu Tianji has ulterior motives. It is better to cripple him. What do you think he'll master? Zhuge Feng said coldly. Looks like we have to consider transferring Elder Hu back. Everyone shook their heads. If it was that easy, he would have been transferred back long ago. Chu Li said, I want to pay a visit to Elder Hu and apologize. Apologize for what? Zhuge Feng scoffed. You did nothing wrong. Chu Li shook his head. After all, I still have to apologize for crippling his disciple. He'll master. Elders, I will take my leave first. He closed fist saluted and lazily left the main hall. Morong Chun smiled. Young master is methodical and has improved greatly. Nonsense, Zhuge Feng scoffed. I am afraid that young master will not be able to get away with it. Morong Chun said, with Elder Hu's temper, how could he not make a move? Since he dared to go, he must be able to protect himself. Zhuge Feng said, if he can't win, he can run. Everyone nodded. Chu Li came to Hu Huarong's courtyard and raised his voice. Junior Zhuge Tian greets Elder Hu. Come in, Hu Huarong said calmly. Chu Li waved his hand to let Qiao Sen stay outside. He stepped into the courtyard and saw Hu Huarong sitting at the stone table. Lu Tianji looked at him calmly, as if the previous scene had never happened, and he was not angry. Hu Huarong's eyes were probing as he asked warmly, Young master, why are you looking for me? Chu Li closed fist saluted. I am here to ask for forgiveness. I crippled Brother Lu and wasted Elder Hu's efforts. I have sinned. It's nothing. I have already healed Tianji's injury. His cultivation level is not completely destroyed. He will recover in a few days, Hu Huarong said. Chu Li raised his eyebrows. I did not expect Elder Hu to have such a panacea. It seems that even the Hill Master does not have one. It was a gift from an old friend. Hu Huarong frowned as he heard the sinister tone in Chu Li's words. Chu Li said, Then congratulations, Brother Lu. You have regained your cultivation level. Lu Tianji said lightly, Young master, I will repay you for what you have today. Chu Li smiled. All right, I will wait for you. I wonder how many more of these panacea elder. Who has? Hu Huarong said, This medicine is rare and difficult to cultivate. I only have one, and I have already given it to Tianji. Chapter 663. Just as Lu Tianji was about to speak, a cold light flashed, The dense cold air had already entered his throat, as if it was frozen, and he was unable to make a sound. His reaction was extremely fast. He subconsciously retreated and raised his head. Swoosh! Chu Li pulled out his sword and retreated. The tip of the sword pulled out from Lu Tianji's dantian. Chu Li took a step back and lightly shook the blade of the sword. The blade of the sword regained its snow-white luster. Then he sheathed the sword and calmly looked at Lu Tianji. Lu Tianji clutched his lower abdomen and widened his eyes. "You!" Hu Huarong slammed the stone table. Bang! The stone table cracked and collapsed into a pile on the ground. Hu Huarong glared at Chu Li. He was so angry that his body was trembling. Chu Li smiled and said, "That's right. If your martial arts is crippled, then it's useless. It's best to cultivate from the beginning. Only by honing yourself properly can you become someone great." Zhuge Tian, Hu Huarong's lips were trembling and his entire body was shaking. "You, how dare you?" Chu Li replied. "He's still a far cry from your master and disciple. He plotted against me and even attacked my mother. I'm already being merciful by not killing him. Considering that we're from the same sect, he would have been dead if he was an outer sect disciple. You actually dare to make a move in front of this old man?" Hu Huarong angrily shouted. "Do you not put this old man in your eyes?" Chu Li said, "Does Elder Hu have any respect for my late mother? Insulting the ancestors, this is the kind of disciple you taught. Elder Hu, in order to achieve his goal, he will do anything." Hu Huarong scoffed. "This old man is an elder. Can't I say a few words to her?" "You took advantage of your seniority and disobeyed the Hill Master's orders. The root of Crouching Bull Mountain's decline lies with you." Chu Li scoffed coldly. "Because your cultivation level is high, and you've lived for a long time, you think that you can order around and make the Hill Master listen to you. You want to be the Grand Hill Master. You make it sound better than a song. You say that everything is for the sake of Crouching Bull Mountain, but in reality, you just want to satisfy your own power. What right does an old man like you have to talk about my late mother? Good, good. Today, I will clean up the mess on behalf of Mountain Chieftain." Hu Huarong's killing intent was aroused, crippling his own disciple in front of him if he didn't make a move. How could he face the world? Chu Li scoffed coldly. "I'm the next Hill Master. You dare to kill me? From today onwards, you are not." Hu Huarong shouted and punched. It was the Crouching Bull punch. Chu Li scoffed. "If that's the case, you can accompany your disciple." He dodged the Crouching Bull punch and instantly appeared behind Hu Huarong, thrusting his sword forward. Hu Huarong ducked and dodged. His body swelled up and his aura surged. Vaguely, he seemed to have transformed into a green ox. He lowered his head and raised his horns, roaring at the sky to resist the will of the heavens. An indescribable aura pervaded the air and became stronger and stronger. Chu Li raised his eyebrows. Did this old man successfully cultivate the Crouching Bull power? Chu Li snorted and retracted his sword light. His sword light turned into a cold star and pierced towards Hu Huarong's throat. Hu Huarong's inner force surged, and his movements were faster than usual. His aged movements were even more agile and nimble than a monkey's. Boundless power filled his body, and he slapped the tip of the sword with his palm. The tip of the sword abruptly sank and suddenly sped up, instantly piercing into Hu Huarong's dantian. Moop! It was as if a dull bull's roar was heard. Hu Huarong's clothes fluttered in the wind. He felt as if his sword could not pierce through. It was as if an invisible force was blocking the tip of the sword. It was unusually flexible. Chu Li raised his eyebrows and condensed his inner force. Zhang! The sword let out a clear sound and sank. "How dare you?" Hu Huarong roared fiercely, with his eyes wide open. Chu Li pulled out his sword and retreated. He gently shook the long sword. The shiny blade was not stained with blood, and he returned it to its scabbard. "Master!" Lu Tianji cried out involuntarily. Hu Huarong roared at the sky. The huge aura around his body quickly weakened. His clothes stuck to his body, and the wrinkles on his face increased rapidly. It was as if he had aged 20 years in an instant. "Master!" Lu Tianji hurried forward to support him and quickly pressed on his dantian. However, because his inner force had disappeared, his finger force was ineffective. He hurriedly took out some medicine, but realized that Hu Huarong's wound was not bleeding. It was as if he was not injured at all. Hu Huarong had white hair and a youthful complexion a moment ago, but now he looked old. The exuberant energy from before had disappeared. He looked like an old man with one foot in the grave. Chu Li said lightly, "Looks like elder who has successfully cultivated the crouching bull power." Hu Huarong's eyes dimmed, and he looked at him numbly. "Crouching bull power? He. Chu Li read from his mind that this was indeed the crouching bull power. However, he did not manage to cultivate it, as he was not qualified enough. Moreover, although the crouching bull power he obtained was more than half of the crouching bull mountain, it was not complete. The sound of clothes fluttering could be heard. Chu Li turned his head and saw Zhuge Feng and the other 6 rushing over. They heard Hu Huarong's roar and rushed over. They did not come earlier because they wanted to avoid arousing suspicion and avoid being scolded by Hu Huarong. They were sure that even if Chu Li fought, he would not be in danger and would be able to escape. They did not expect to hear Hu Huarong's roar. It sounded like he was at a disadvantage. Zhuge Feng and the other 6 approached and closed-fist saluted. "Elder Hu." They saw that Hu Huarong's complexion was different. It did not look like he had a deep inner force. It was as if he had lost his cultivation. He looked old and weak. "Elder Hu, what's wrong?" Zhuge Feng hurriedly asked. "What's wrong?" "Ha ha." Hu Huarong laughed at the sky. "I must have been blind. I deserve this outcome." Zhuge Feng turned to look at Chu Li. "What happened?" Chu Li lazily said, "Nothing much." Elder Hu wanted to accompany his disciple and crippled his martial arts to cultivate again. What a deep relationship between a master and his disciple. I am very impressed. You, Lu Tianji, stared at him coldly. Chu Li said, "Then I can only fulfill Elder Hu's wish and let this story be told." "You crippled Elder Hu's martial arts." Zhuge Feng shouted. Chu Li lazily nodded. "Evil creature," Zhuge Feng angrily scolded. "How dare you be so presumptuous?" Chu Li sighed. "It was my fault. Elder Hu, please don't take it to heart." "Elder Hu." Zhuge Feng's heart was filled with joy, but his face showed a pained expression. "It was my fault for not teaching my son properly and caused such a disaster. Elder Hu, please don't be calculative with him. Please take care and don't get angry and hurt your body." "Ha ha." Hu Huarong waved his hand and pushed away Lu Tianji's support. He shook his head and sighed. "I have worked hard for the sect all my life, but in the end, I ended up like this. I feel sorry for myself." He glanced at the crowd and sighed. "The young lord that was elected by everyone is so cruel. I am afraid that what I am now will be the outcome for all of you in the future." Chu Li chuckled. "Elder, who seems to be so obedient. You used your age to act like a tyrant and stood on your own in the surpassing state. They don't have that kind of ability. You should have thought of this outcome today. Zhuge Tian, I will never agree to you becoming the next hill master." Hu Huarong said in a low voice. Chu Li said, "You should stay here and recuperate your body. Don't wander around." What are you doing? Hu Huarong said coldly. Chu Li said, You don't have to return to the surpassing state. You are old and should return to your roots. Chapter 664. Zhuge Feng coughed lightly and looked at the other 6 elders. What do you think, elders? They were hesitant and hesitant. Hu Huarong and the others used the surpassing state to fight against the sect. They vaguely wanted to split the sect and become independent. Crippling their martial arts was not an exaggeration. The young lord's action was satisfying, but Hu Huarong was not the only one in the surpassing state. There was another elder, Jin Yi. Jin Yi was the most difficult to deal with. If Hu Huarong stayed, Jin Yi would definitely cause trouble. Jin Ye's cultivation level was higher than Hu Huarong's. Although the young lord crippled Hu Huarong, it was another matter if he could deal with Jin Yi. Moreover, the 2 strongest elders in the sect were crippled. If they crippled the other, their strength would be empty. Someone might want to take advantage of the situation. They had many things to think about, so they were hesitant. Chu Li scoffed. What else is there to think about? Keeping him in the sect is already very lenient. If we let him go, we will be too weak. Sigh. Morong Chun shook his head and sighed. Elder Hu, everyone misses you. Elder Hu, you have a lot of experience in martial arts. You are the best to teach the younger generation. Staying in the surpassing state is a waste. I am also teaching the younger generation in the surpassing state. Hu Huarong sneered. You have guts. Morong Chun said, The teaching at the beginning of cultivation is the most important. Elder Hu, you are the most suitable. Hill Master, I think we should talk to Elder Jin and ask Elder Hu to stay. It's better to stay, Xia Lian said. Sai, if that's the case, then I'll write a letter to Elder Jin and ask Elder Hu and Lu Tianji to stay in the sect and recover their martial arts. Zhuge Feng nodded and said, Elder, Hu has been wronged. Hu Huarong shut his mouth and did not say anything else. He slowly closed his eyes. Elder, Hu must be tired. Let's not disturb him. Let's go. Zhuge Feng said. Everyone left the courtyard. They all looked at Chu Li. Zhuge Feng scoffed. Let's go to the basilica. Chu Li said, There is nothing to say. Both master and disciple are not good people. They plotted against me. I am just returning the favor. Nonsense. Zhuge Feng scoffed. You crippled him just like that. You don't know the immensity of heaven and earth. Do you know how much trouble you've caused? If he meets a top-notch master, they shouldn't have provoked me. I'm afraid he'll be at a disadvantage. He left as soon as he finished speaking. Because they weren't strong enough and quickly cupped his fists at everyone. Crouching Bull Mountain and followed has had enough. It's time for us to be strong. Back and sighed. You guys. Hillmaster shook his head. The young lord's temper felt that the reason why his son was able to obtain their support, he might be able to raise the morale of the Crouching Bull Mountain, but also because of his temper. Chun said they had all had enough of their anger. No one will dare to provoke us. Wait to vent it out. He's too good at causing trouble. This was not a good thing, and as it could easily cause a disaster and lead to death. In the evening, Zhou Hang and Chu Daji arrived at the restaurant in the ravine. As soon as they entered the restaurant, they saw Duan Wuya, Huang Tao, and Li Weiran sitting at a table by the window. They were having a heated discussion with the disciples around them. When they saw the 2 enter, everyone stopped talking and greeted them. To normal disciples, Zhou Hang and Duan Wuya could not be offended. Even if they were biased, they still had to be polite. Zhou Hang and Chu Daji sat at an empty table and ordered a few dishes to go with the wine. Then they looked around. Li Weiran came to their table and sat down. He scoffed. "Brother Zhou, Brother Chu, have you heard about the young lord?" "What is it?" Chu Daji asked. They really did not know what was going on. When Murong Liang dragged them to meet the hill master, they almost offended the young lord. Out of anger, they left Murong Liang and hid at home to train their martial arts. Li Weiran said, "The young lord crippled elder, Hu Warong's martial arts." "Elder, Hu Warong?" Chu Daji was shocked. "How is that possible? It's absolutely true." Li Weiran scoffed. "Other than Elder Jean, the elder with the highest seniority in our sect is Elder Hu. However, the young lord crippled elder Hu's martial arts. It's unbelievable." Zhou Heng asked, "Why?" "It seems that Elder Hu's disciple, Lu Tianji, also wanted to fight for the next hill master and had a conflict with the young lord. Therefore, the young lord crippled Lu Tianji's martial arts first, and then crippled Elder Hu's martial arts. Those who submit to me will prosper, and those who oppose me will perish. This is too violent." Li Weiran shook his head and sighed. "If this goes on, he'll be the only one in our sect who has the final say. No one else will dare to speak up. Otherwise, he'll cripple their martial arts again." "That's not true." Zhou Heng shook his head. "The young lord is not that extreme. It must be Elder Hu and the others who provoked the young lord. It's just a fight for the next hill master's position." Li Weiran scoffed. "Everyone will rely on their own abilities. We also believe that the hill master will not be biased. However, why did he cripple the martial arts of his fellow disciples, and even the elders?" Zhou Heng asked. "Does anyone know why the young lord crippled their martial arts?" Li Weiran shook his head. "No, but no matter what, he can't cripple their martial arts. He even crippled the elders' martial arts because of their insubordination. We don't dare to accept such a hill master." Everyone nodded. Although the young lord's martial arts were extremely high and he had defeated all the experts of the younger generation, his temperament was eccentric and his methods were violent. They were worried that if he really became the hill master, he would be too strict with his subordinates and they would not have a good life. Zhou Heng said in a low voice, "You don't understand the young lord at all. He's a very wise person, and he's involved in the struggle between the upper echelons. The inside story is very deep, and we don't understand at all. It's like looking at flowers in the fog. We can't see clearly, and we can't just follow the crowd. Anyway, we don't like the young lord and don't want him to be the next hill master." Li Weiran pouted. "We can't just take over the position just because he's the hill master's son, right? That's too childish." Zhou Heng glanced at Duan Tianya and Huang Tao, who were not far away, and said coldly, "Who spread this news?" "I don't know." Li Weiran said, "Do you think it's us? This is unjust. Duan Tianya can't be the hill master." Zhou Heng said, "Why not?" Li Weiran said, "Senior brother Duan's martial arts are strong, and he has a good character. We can rest assured that he'll be the hill master." Zhou Heng shook his head. "If you don't want to harm senior brother Duan, then be more honest. Don't encourage him, or else you'll end up like Lu Tianji." "Humph, I don't think he would dare." Li Weiran said. Zhou Heng smiled and did not say anything else. If he dared to cripple the elders' martial arts, then he would not dare to cripple a disciple. Did they think that the young lord was the kind of person who would care about what others thought? Chapter 665. He vaguely felt that something was not right. There was an undercurrent in all of this. It was as if someone was deliberately discrediting the young lord, targeting him, and provoking the disciples to be hostile towards the young Lord. He did not know who it was, but no matter how he thought about it, it could not be Duan Wuya. Duan Wuya did not have the guts to do this, so it could not be Murong Liang. Who could it be? Chu Daji stared at Li Weiran angrily. These people are crazy. Don't be a busybody. Zhou Heng shook his head. Let them say what they want. Don't get involved. I'm just worried that if this goes on, the elders won't be able to suppress it. Chu Daji scoffed. We can't just beat everyone up. Even if we beat them up, they won't change their minds. Someone is deliberately provoking them. Zhou Heng shook his head. I'll go back and tell my father that they will investigate carefully and find this person. He's using everyone to stir up trouble. How despicable. Yes, find him. Chu Daji scoffed. Suddenly, a young disciple ran into the restaurant and shouted, Elder Jean is back. Everyone immediately looked over. Most innate masters would enter the surpassing state once a year and stay there for a month. During that time, they would be personally taught by the two elders and were grateful to them. They were unhappy that Chu Li had crippled elder, whose martial arts. Now that they heard that the other elder of the surpassing state, Jin Yi, had arrived, everyone's spirits were lifted. They felt that they would definitely seek justice for elder and punish the young lord so that he would not be so lawless again. Zhou Heng frowned. This was troublesome. Chu Daji said, Brother Zhou, let's go see the young lord. Zhou Heng nodded. The two of them went downstairs and went straight to Chu Li's courtyard. When they arrived, they saw Qiao Sen guarding the door. Chapter 6, Qiao Sen saw them a moment later. Two middle-aged men in purple robes returned to the main hall. Chu Daji and closed fists Qiao Sen nodded. Elder, young Lord, Zhuge has escaped. Why are you hiding? His personal scribe, Chu Daji shouted. Qiao Sen, Chu Li's voice was heard. He has been brought here. What are you panicking Elder, for? Please go do what you need to do. Qiao Sen, come in. Chu Daji said. Qiao Sen strode into the main hall. Elder Jean is the number one master in our sect. Saluted. I'd like to meet this number one master. What's going on? Chu Li said. Qiao Sen, where's Zhuge Elder Jin's prestige is extremely high. His gaze was cold. If you defeat him, you won't have a good ending. Everyone will hate you. The young lord has left the mountain to travel. Scoffed softly, left the mountain, and did not say anything else. When did this happen? Qiao Sen said in a low voice. Go back first. The young lord has just left the mountain, knows what to do. And Elder Jean is already here. Young master, what a coincidence. Be careful. Qiao Sen said. Elder Jean is very overbearing. So you know what a coincidence is. Chu Li's voice was heard. He heard the news after the two of them and left. Escaped. Qiao Sen said. Qiao Sen said, let's listen to the hill master know that Elder Jean and hide from this old man. Where did he go? Come in. Genie Chu Li said. Don't tell me. Qiao Sen pushed the door open and entered. Qiao Sen said, Chu Li stood in the courtyard with his hands behind his back. He will travel around the public house. If he's in the mood, he will visit the Skyward Palace. Visit the Skyward Palace. Genie shook his head. How arrogant. Everyone looked at him in confusion. Genie scoffed. He wants to take back the second half of the Crouching Bull insight, right? Everyone nodded. Genie scoffed. From what I know, there's a peerless genius hiding in the Skyward Palace. He hasn't shown himself for a long time, but when he does, he will amaze the world. He's asking to be humiliated if he wants to challenge us. Which peerless genius is it? Morong Chun asked. Genie shook his head. I don't know his name, but he's a powerful person. Zhuge escaped. If that's the case, let's announce it right away. We'll banish him from the sect. Xia Lian said. Elder Jean, in my opinion, there's no rush to announce it. It won't be too late to announce it when the young lord returns to the sect. Jin Yi looked at Xia Lian with his sleepy eyes. Young Xia, you're trying to cover this up while I'm back. Am I right? Xia Lian waved his hand and smiled. Elder Jean, why are you in such a hurry to go back? Just wait for a while. The young master usually doesn't take too long to travel down the mountain. He'll be back in 10 days to half a month. 10 days to half a month. Jin Yi sneered and said, If someone were to inform them, I'm afraid they wouldn't be able to return even after 10 days to half a month. Moreover, if I leave the surpassing state, what if something happens? With the protection of the formation, how could anything happen? Xiao Lian said disapprovingly, Elder Jean, you are too nervous. Let's do it this way. Elder Jean, you stay for a while so that we can personally listen to your teachings. Elder, who has stayed behind. Elder Jean should accompany him as well, lest he gets used to being alone. Murong Chun said, Jean, you swept a cold glance at everyone and snorted. Don't play any tricks. Since she said so, it meant that the method was simple. He just didn't think that he could think of it so quickly. Lu Yurong coughed and said before he could, just cripple her martial arts. Chu Li scoffed. I knew that. He had just thought of it, but Lu Yurong said it before he could. Lu Yurong looked at him and said nothing. Chu Li said, tell me another way. Are you a man or not? Lu Yurong looked at him and said in disdain. Chu Li sighed. All right, one favor. Is there any other way? The second favor. Lu Yurong said. Chu Li stared at her flirtatious face. Lu Yurong looked at him with a faint smile. Do you want to hear it? All right, 2 in total. Chu Li said through gritted teeth. Lu Yurong was taking advantage of the situation, but it was not a big deal. He could always find a chance to get back at her. Lu Yurong smiled. All right, I was just teasing you. Count it as 1. As far as I know, the Amethyst Mountain has a mystical technique called the Nature Restoration Manifestation. It can help you experience different states of mind. If you can cultivate the Nature Restoration Manifestation, you can find the weakness of Shao Qi's state of mind. The Nature Restoration Manifestation. Chu Li frowned. Why haven't I heard of it? The 4 major sects have many mystical and antique techniques. Many of them have not been cultivated for a long time, so long that you will forget about their existence. Lu Yurong shook her head. The Amethyst Mountain being one of the 4 major sects is not a fluke. What is the core technique of the Amethyst Mountain? Chu Li asked. Green Deer Cliff. Chu Li was shocked. Could it be that they use spirit deer as their antique study? Lu Yurong shook her head. They are based on the spirit cranes. Spirit crane? Chu Li nodded without batting an eyelid. Could it be that the spirit crane ultimate technique is the most powerful? Lu Yurong said, among the spiritual beasts, the spirit crane is not the strongest, but it is the most detached. It has almost no natural enemies and can roam freely between heaven and earth. Hence, it has a long lifespan, which is why Green Deer Cliff chose the name of the spirit crane. Most importantly, it is easy to enter the 100,000 mountains by practicing the martial arts of the spirit crane, and it will not be seen as an enemy by other spiritual beasts. Chu Li nodded slowly. Did any of them cultivate the spirit crane martial art and become an enlightened master? 2. Lu Yurong nodded. Chu Li took a deep breath and said, Spirit crane. However, the martial arts of the spirit crane is more difficult than other spiritual beasts. Other spiritual beasts only need the aura to master the martial arts, but the martial arts of the spirit crane requires the state of mind. It is more like the martial arts of the grandmasters. It requires the carefree state of mind of the spirit crane. Lu Yurong shook her head. Moreover, those who are successful in their cultivation usually do not want to leave the mountain and disturb their carefree state. They prefer to live like wild cranes, which is why it is rare to see disciples of Green Deer Cliff. Chu Li said, It seems that joining Green Deer Cliff is the right path. Green Deer Cliff is most particular about the foundation and the state of mind. The number of disciples they have is comparable to the Titanium Temple. Lu Yurong shook her head. Do you want to join Green Deer Cliff? Chu Li smiled. Is there any hope of success? Impossible. Lu Yurong pursed her lips and smiled. If you practice other martial arts, Green Deer Cliff will not accept you, so you should just give up. Chuli sighed and nodded. Spirit cranes. He now had the spirit cranes peak and the spirit cranes as friends. If he could cultivate the martial arts of the spirit crane, it would be a shortcut. Lu Yurong said, perfecting the martial arts of spirit beasts is more difficult than the martial arts of grandmasters. It requires a wide range of martial arts. Take the disciples of Green Deer Cliff, for example. Their basic heart technique is the spirit crane technique, and they have to cultivate various martial arts to understand the true meaning of each martial art to improve the spirit crane technique. It is not possible to just rely on the state of mind. From what I know, Green Deer Cliff's disciples have to cultivate at least 4 spirit beast antique studies to have any hope of perfecting it. Cultivating 1 will never achieve perfection, and 2 is almost impossible. Or will you hand it over to the Skyward Palace and become the real palace leader of the Skyward Palace? I'll take it first. Xiong Feng smiled. As he spoke, he threw a punch. The turbulent energy poured out like a flood. Everyone in the main hall felt the pressure. Xiong Feng did not use his full strength before, so there was no such momentum. A cold light flashed at Chu Li's waist and turned into a cold star. It instantly broke through all obstacles and appeared in front of Xiong Feng's throat. Xiong Feng faced the tip of the sword in front of his throat. He did not panic and lightly slapped the tip of the sword with his palm. TSS, the tip of the sword pierced through his left palm without any hindrance and was still heading for his throat. Xiong Feng's expression changed slightly. He did not expect the sword force to be so sharp that his sky-piercing palm could not block it. He took a step back to avoid it. His left palm also wanted to free itself from the sword. TSS, the tip of the sword suddenly sped up. It cut through the air as if it was tearing clothes. It instantly pierced his shoulder. He wanted to avoid it, but he could not. The speed of the sword was beyond imagination. Xiong Feng had never seen such a fast sword. Chu Li took a step back and said, "Do you want to go again?" "Watch my palm." Xiong Feng shouted. Both his palms suddenly expanded. The lines on his palms were clearly visible. The wounds on his left palm and left shoulder that exposed his bones had unknowingly closed up. They were no longer bleeding. His right palm slowly struck out. Woo! A shrill roar sounded like someone was howling at the sky. The force of the palm overflowed. The people around could not help but retreat. Their clothes fluttered, as if there was a gust of wind rushing into the main hall. Chu Li's sword turned into a cold light and instantly pierced the center of his palm. TSS, the tip of the sword, came out from the back of his palm. His enlarged right palm immediately returned to its original size like a deflated balloon. Chu Li pulled out his sword and retreated. The wound on his right palm exposed the white bones. Blood kept flowing out. Chu Li looked at his wound. "Do you want to go again?" "I've lost." Xiong Feng smiled. He shook his head and sighed. "I still can't do it." Chu Li said, "You're only 1 step away." Xiong Feng sighed. "This is fate." Chu Li said, "You're the strongest in Skyward Palace, right?" "Yes." Xiong Feng nodded. "Are you going to challenge Skyward Palace?" If he could cultivate the spirit crane technique, he would be on the way to heaven. As long as he focused on cultivation, he could become an enlightened master. Chu Li said, "Hill Master, if I become the Hill Master, I will make changes." "What changes?" Zhuge Feng asked. Chu Li said, "All disciples can cultivate the crouching bull insight. This is the only way to increase the cultivation level of the disciples and increase the strength of Crouching Bull Mountain. If not, Crouching Bull Mountain will never rise again. The ancestors of Crouching Bull Mountain were very powerful people, but they were not broad-minded enough. They would rather the sect be weak than let the crouching bull insight be leaked. They did not know that many of the sects that disappeared were destroyed because they were weak. Many of the martial arts of the sects were not bad, but the disciples could not learn all of them, causing their strength to be weak. Zhuge Feng's expression changed. "Don't talk nonsense," Chu Li said. "The teaching of each drawing is based on merit. If you have enough merit, you can teach the second, third, and up to the 8th drawing. The Hill Master only needs to cultivate one more drawing." "You really think too much," Zhuge Feng scoffed. "This is the rule of the ancestors. How can it be broken so easily?" Chu Li said, "Times change. Things are different now. If we don't change, Crouching Bull Mountain will really become weaker and weaker. Don't talk about rising again. I'm afraid it won't be long before the sect is destroyed." Zhuge Feng's expression changed. Murong Chun and Xia Lian frowned. "But if we teach the disciples like this, I'm afraid it will be leaked." "So what if it is leaked?" "At most, a few drawings will be leaked. Look at the martial arts of the Tempest Temple. The sentient menace has been leaked at least 3 levels. What loss is there to the Tempest Temple?" Zhuge Feng and the other 2 frowned and pondered. Chu Li said, "If the martial arts are leaked, as long as the foundation is not leaked, it will be beneficial to the sect. It will expand its influence and filter out talents. The disadvantages outweigh the advantages." "We have to be careful about this." Zhuge Feng shook his head. Chu Li scoffed. "If we continue to be careful, people will come knocking on our door. Other than me, everyone else is useless. Will it be worse if the martial arts are leaked?" Zhuge Feng remained silent. Chu Li said, "If you don't do it, then I will definitely do it when I become the Hill Master." "I need to discuss this with the elders," Zhuge Feng said. "I'm just looking at you," Chu Li replied. Xiao Qi said, "So what if I look at it? So what if I don't? What's in the past is in the past. Don't come back." Chu Li frowned at her. Xiao Qi shook her head. "If you come again, I'll leave. Where to? The world is so big. Where can I go?" "All right." Chu Li nodded and looked at her deeply. The current Xiao Qi was no longer the Xiao Qi of the past. She did not have any feelings for him at all. Chu Li could not help but feel a surge of pride. She could not escape from his grasp, so he would definitely find a way to break her state of mind. When that time came, he would settle the score with her. He saw Li Hanyan peeping in their direction from the forest. He shook his head and laughed. In a flash, he appeared behind her. "Big brother Du." Li Hanyan was shocked. Chu Li asked, "What has she been doing recently?" "Sitting by the lake all day long. We don't even know what senior sister is comprehending." Li Hanyan shook her head and said, "When I talk to senior sister, she's very gentle. She's only cold to you. Brother Du, it's very strange." Chu Li nodded. The more he did not care, the calmer and gentler she would treat him. He was the emotional thread that she forcefully cut off, so naturally her reaction would not be as gentle. This also made him understand that Xiao Qi was not as he thought. She did not have any feelings for him. She was trying her best to restrain herself. It seemed that he must quickly cultivate the nature restoration manifestation to prevent her state of mind from becoming more and more solid. Li Hanyan tilted her head and looked at him. "Big brother Du, you're the chief of the E-Public House, the head chief of the imperial residence of King N, or the centurion of the secret guardians hall. Which identity do you prefer?" Chu Li smiled. "The chief of the High Duke's public house is the most carefree and carefree. The other 2 identities are out of my control." "Why do you ask?" "Big brother Du, I want to go to Fairy's capital." Li Hanyan said, to broaden my horizons. Chuli smiled and nodded. When you're almost done with your martial arts, you can go to Fairy's capital for a look. However, Fairy's capital is not as fun as you think it is. Most of the grandmasters of the Ji dynasty are gathered in Fairy's capital. It's not an exaggeration to call it a dragon's lair. All the more reason to go there. Li Hanyan said, "There's no point in staying in the valley." She was extremely talented in martial arts, and she had received guidance from Chuli before, so she had a deep understanding of martial arts. Usually, her cultivation would progress at a tremendous pace, and she would soon surpass her senior brothers and sisters in the same faction. Now, she was almost on par with Xu Qingdai. Her potential was even higher than Xu Qingdia's. She would definitely become the top master of Snow Lunar Pavilion in the future,